used to in the past 3 decades. The last time it was higher was March 1992, another time when the world was emerging from a global economic shock, when it was 7.1%. Driving it up in the year to December were not only higher petrol and diesel prices, but prices of food, drink, restaurants and hotels, furniture and homeware, and clothing and footwear. The Bank of England had already started raising interest rates last month, and they're likely to rise further this year as it seeks to prevent price rises getting out of control.
World News from the BBC. The Taliban in Afghanistan have appealed to Muslim nations to become the first to recognise their government. Since the militant group seized power in August, international aid, which funded most public services in Afghanistan, has dried up and foreign currency reserves have been frozen. That's left millions of people short of food. The Taliban Prime Minister Mohammed Hassan Akhund said diplomatic recognition would help the country develop quickly. Israeli police have demolished the home of a Palestinian family in a flashpoint neighbourhood of occupied East Jerusalem. Here's Yulan Nell with the details.
In the cold and rain before dawn, dozens of Israeli police officers raided the Salhia family home. Arrests were made and bulldozers moved in. This was the first eviction in Sheikh Jarrah since 2017. However, unlike in other local cases, it didn't involve a takeover by Jewish settler groups. Instead, the Jerusalem municipality said the building was illegal, something the family denied, and that the land was needed to set up a special needs school for Palestinians. Israeli activists point out that a nearby plot, which remains empty, was previously taken to build a school and then given to an ultra-Orthodox Jewish organisation for a seminary.
A high court in South Africa has overturned a lower court's decision to send a man accused of setting fire to Parliament for psychiatric evaluation. The judge said Sandile Mafe was admitted to Valkenburg Hospital for 30 days without proper cause, and any further detention there would be illegal. Cultural institutions in the Netherlands are conducting a unique protest against the government's COVID-related lockdown measures. More than 100 theatres, museums and galleries, which had been told to stay shut, are reopening as temporary gyms, beauticians and hairdressers. They include the prestigious Concertgebouw and the Van Gogh Museum, which is offering beard or haircuts and art-inspired nail manicures. BBC News.
Hello, my name is Noor, daughter of Ken Saro-Wiwa, and this is the BBC World Service. Some of you will know his name, some of you might not. If you do, then you'll know him for his actions as a poet and a protester, a man killed for his beliefs. If you don't know him, then listen closely. Listen to his words, the words of my father, secret words, smuggled from his prison cell, and here, now at last, shared with the world.
Keep out of prison, he wrote. Don't get arrested anymore. But while the land is ravaged and our pure air poisoned, when streams choke with pollution, silence would be treason.
One of the 27 poems and 2 years of letters my father wrote to an Irish nun in the run-up to his execution in November 1995. Smuggled out of the military detention centre in breadbaskets, they're the last testament of a man who gave everything he had for a struggle for justice. For years, Shell Oil, with the backing of the Nigerian government, drilled for oil in the mangrove swamps of the Niger Delta. The pollution that followed destroyed farms and rivers and contaminated the fishing and drinking water of the Ogoni people. A UN Environment Assessment report in 2011 stated that control and maintenance of oil field infrastructure in Ogoniland has been and remains inadequate. The Shell Petroleum Development Company's own procedures have not been applied, creating public health and safety issues, and the UN described the effect on the mangrove swamps as being disastrous. We asked Shell for a response to the report and what followed, and they sent us the following statement, which we have voiced ourselves.
We are committed to the implementation of the UNEP report and have acted on all the recommendations directed to us in it and completed most of them. We also actively support the clean-up process coordinated by the Nigerian government, which needs multi-stakeholder efforts. By the end of next year, SPDC will have contributed $900 million to the federal government's clean-up agency, HIPREP. While we have not operated in Ogoni land since 1993, we also continue to fund and support community programmes there.
I see my father, Ken Saro-Wiwa, as a thread of inspiration to environmentalists across decades and continents. Nigerian environmental activist Nimo Bassi describes these last letters as invaluable fragments of a living conversation. And there is this sense of immediacy. They're a living history of these events. They show the process of building a movement as chaotic rather than linear, and give us insights into how the movement for the survival of the Ogoni people, known as Mossop, organised itself on the ground. And these last writings of my father show him uncomfortable at becoming a disembodied, iconic figure. He plays down the martyr-saviour narrative in favour of a more fluid sense of self as voice, a globally resonant voice which still has relevance today.
Prison song. Bedbugs, fleas, and insects. The howl of deranged suspects. The dark night bisect. Rudely breaking my nightmare, and now widely awake. I'm reminded of this crude place, shared with unusual inmates.
In May 1994, 4 Ogoni chiefs and members of the movement for the survival of the Ogoni people, known as Mossop, were murdered following a division within Mossop over whether the organisation should cooperate with the military government. The government accused my father and some of his colleagues of inciting those murders, despite the fact that one of the victims was my mother's brother-in-law. An Amnesty International report at the time stated, "Scores of Mossop supporters, many of them young men, were detained without charge for months, beaten severely, locked up 24 hours a day in overcrowded and insanitary cells, denied medical treatment or any access to lawyers or families." This first letter from my father is undated, most likely written in July 1994.
Dear Sister Magella, greetings in God's name. Well, you know the whole story. They are getting closer to me, Shell and the Nigerian establishment, that is. I'm not particularly protected, although I have great faith in God, in the justness of my cause, and in the belief in eventual victory. But the pain which we all have to endure, would to God it had been lighter. My current detention is sheer torture. I'm a private prisoner of Lieutenant Colonel Kojo and his Internal Security Task Force. This is a lawless situation. I'm being held under Decree 2, for all I know, and if I were being held under the criminal code over the homicide of 4 Ogoni men, I should be in the hands of the police. Now, here I am, in a private house, denied access to lawyer, doctor, family, other visitors, and not allowed to have the special diet which I have been on. I am not allowed to read newspapers, listen to radio, or read books. It's mental torture. The living condition is okay, there is electricity and air conditioning, but I'm alone with 2 armed guards 24 hours a day. I've asked Bishop Mokozi to intervene with the governor, so I'm properly fed and taken to hospital. No dice. You should see me. I've lost weight. For the first 10 days here, I was on bread, water, and bananas alone. I'm in a good spirit, undaunted, as convinced of my cause as ever. My real worry is the devastation of Ogoni villages, the destabilization of the area, and the harassment and killing of the people. With Mossop steering committee members on the run or under arrest, the Ogoni are not protected at all. and the international scene is quiet, taken up with Abiola, only divine intervention can help the Ogoni. I'm not worried for myself. When I undertook to confront Shell and the Nigerian establishment, I signed my death warrant, so to speak. At 52, I think I've served my time, and come to face it, I've lived a charmed life. A few more books maybe, and the opportunity to assist others would have been welcome. But it's okay. Of course, I and Mossop had nothing to do with the death of the four gentlemen. We are struggling for justice, not for power, and in any case, they were of little consequence in a highly mobilized and conscious Ogoni population. They were no threat in any way at all. Kojo has just succeeded in masking the government's role in the unfortunate and brutal deaths. Well, sister, I hope you do get this letter. I hope I'll get another opportunity to write you. I'm spending my time writing short stories. I lock my door and do not allow my jailers to see me at it. If we meet again, we'll smile. Till then, it's good luck, and God bless you.
The nun my father was writing to, Sister Magella McCarran, had been teaching in Nigeria for 30 years. In the early 90s, she was tasked by a new organisation called the Africa-Europe Faith and Justice Network with researching Western companies which they believed were having a detrimental effect on Nigeria.
So I remember feeling that I know nothing about this, but from what I read, this population knows everything about it. So if I could link in with them, then I would learn my job, because they already knew what it was all about. So that's how I went to them first.
A mutual colleague at the university introduced Magella to my father in his office in Lagos.
And then I went down a few other times, and I think he would quiz me a lot, and I've seen references as to why we got on very well, but it's possible that he slowly recognised that I belonged to a colonial structure as well, being Northern Irish. So it may have been that he wanted to hear what I thought of this and that. But the questions were so interesting that I'd go home and write an answer. And I started handing in my notes to him and saying, this is what I thought of that. And then one day I went down and I found his typist typing up my notes. And that's the way the conversation started. And then they began taking my notes over to him in prison, the 500 kilometres. And I began to get answers back. He wrote with absolute ease. He'd see all that as part of the campaign. Every one of those letters had a business in it.
If you're wondering how the letters managed to get in and out of a military detention centre, Ledumite, the vice president of Mossop, arrested alongside my father, explained how they came up with a plan. He said that he and Ken refused to eat the food provided, and eventually the families were allowed to deliver meals to the guards, which were then passed on. This is how we smuggled writings in and out, Lidum said. My father mentions Professor Ake and Wole Soyinka several times in these letters. Claude Ake was a professor of political economy at Port Harcourt University and an outspoken critic of the oil companies and the Nigerian government. Wole Soyinka won the Nobel Prize in Literature in 1986 and had to flee Nigeria for some years because of threats from President Abacha's military government.
September 16th, 1994. I'm still here, 118 days today, and there's no sign that I'll be out soon. No matter, I'm writing and reading a lot and making good use of the time. One of my poems was published in the Independent of London on the 8th of September. And Professor Ake and Wole Soyinka have done excellent essays on Ogoni. That by Wole Soyinka appeared in the New York Times and probably sent the Nigerian ambassador to the US to Ogoni. He came here to see me. Unfortunately, he could not really discuss meaningfully because the military upset me by remaining with us. I also wore a Mossop singlet to ensure that they did not get a photo opportunity. They had a video camera along and the Sunray photographer smuggled himself into the team. Later, the Sunray films were confiscated and the editors of the newspaper manhandled and the Mossop singlet seized from me. But I had made the point. The government keeps saying we are to be charged to court soon, but they've been saying that for about 2 months. I doubt that their investigations led to much, but they are probably looking for the judges who will agree to do their bidding. All in all, I'm in high spirits and my time is well used. The physical conditions have been quite good. Had my computer not been confiscated, I should have written a lot more than the 5 or 6 books I've now either finished or completed anew. And somehow I remain immensely confident that the Ogoni cause will be won. I hope that you meet your family in good health and that you are resting as you should.
From
Please
the
keep in
large
touch.
companies that you've just mentioned,
Sincerely,
to medium-sized firms
Ken.
such as Arcadis and Arup, and very many SME specialist consultancies. And actually what we're seeing is growth across all segments of those members. And that's because, we serve tens of thousands of clients across the public and private sector. And during these unprecedented times, when businesses are facing a lot of uncertainty, when they've had to recover from post-pandemic plans, they're turning to external trusted advisors to help them to grow. And that growth is, being met by large and small firms.
Tamsin, very struck by the fact that you expect this demand next year. I mean, it sounds like it's a seller's market for your members. Presumably they're all going to be jacking up their fees.
So we don't get involved in discussions around fees with members, but what we are seeing is because of this increase in demand for the consulting sector, we are seeing a lot of demand for talent. So it's a great time to join the consulting sector. Obviously, we recruit a huge amount of talented individuals every year. Many graduates, many apprentices from many varied and different backgrounds join the consulting sector. So it is a hot market at the moment, and it's certainly one where there's a lot of recruitment going on as firms try to meet the demand from clients.
So it sounds as though the sector hasn't been hit by the great resignation. People are clearly enjoying home working. In my experience, though, consultants are far more effective when they're actually on the ground with their clients.
So absolutely, you were very right to highlight the top line statistic in that survey, which showed that 57% of people think their work-life balance has improved. In fact, 25% also think it's declined. I think what consultancies and their clients will be trying to work through over the next few months when the regulations change is making sure that you've got that blend of the best of digital remote working, which has been appreciated by clients because consultancies have been able to deliver multi-million pound digital transformation remotely, but also that we're using that face-to-face interaction, which is so essential for business, as you say, and for people, for training and development. We know that young consultants across our industry really need to meet face-to-face with their colleagues, with their peers, with senior consultants, so that they can learn all the skills of the trade. So, the challenge will be for firms and for clients to find the right blend of face-to-face and digital remote working, so that we can keep all of the benefits that we've gained during this period, but also so we can return to some human face-to-face interaction rather than by screens.
Absolutely. Tamsin, good to talk to you this morning. Thank you.
Thanks.
Well, still to come here on Ian King Live. We'll be having a look at how global markets are doing this Wednesday morning. Stay with us.
breached the road. There is a lot of gas being fired all around us. It is an absolute carnival kind of atmosphere out here for Prime Minister Modi's decisive victory. These students are defying the prohibitory order, and now they're going to be arrested. We aim to be the best and most trusted place for news. The roads have been inundated. The only way out is to get people by boat. This on any given day would have been bustling with people, but today it's absolutely deserted. I'm Neville Lazarus, and I'm Sky's reporter based in Delhi.
Well, Wall Street had a rocky session yesterday as concerns over inflation sent bond yields higher and rattled the equity markets. The S&P 500 fell by 1.8%, while the Dow Jones Industrial Average fell by 1.5%, which was its biggest one-day fall since November. The Nasdaq, meanwhile, is getting close to correction territory. Well, all of that was followed by overnight falls in the Asia-Pacific region by and large. The Nikkei 225 in Tokyo fell by almost 3%, and Sydney was down by 1%. In Europe, stocks have been pretty mixed since the opening a couple of hours ago, drifting in and out of negative territory. Here's the current picture right now. The CAC 40 in France has staged something of a rally, up nearly 2/3 of 1%. The MIB in Milan in negative territory. The DAX and the IBEX have also been in negative territory at various points this morning as well. Talking points in Europe today. It's not all bad news by any stretch of the imagination. Richemont, shares of the luxury goods group behind Cartier and Van Cleef & Arpels, well, they're up by nearly 9% in Zurich, and that is on better than expected quarterly sales figures. Here in London, FTSE 100 has just about crept into positive territory. It's more or less unchanged there, really. 7 points to the good there. The leading gainer, we heard from them earlier on in the programme, is Pearson, the blue chip gainer. That's up by 6.75% now, while the property group Segro, its shares are ahead by 2.5% after receiving a push from one of the brokers. On the downside, well, look at that. Unilever's ahead right now. It was down quite sharply earlier on this morning, so it's snapped around a little bit there. Outside the FTSE 100, loads going on. A lot of trading updates for investors to get their teeth into. The pick of the bunch there, as you can see, WH Smith. The shares are up some nearly 5% right now on the trading update. While Watches of Switzerland, well, I mentioned Richemont a moment or so ago. I think Watches of Switzerland is up in sympathy with them. It shares some 3% to the good right now. On the foreign exchange markets, so a higher than expected inflation number has sent the pound slightly higher against the US dollar. It's up a sixth of 1% right now against the greenback, more or less unchanged right now against the euro. As for the oil price, well, that has edged back above $88 a barrel this morning amid ongoing concerns over tightness in supply. A barrel of Brent crude currently will cost you $88.31 a barrel. That is up just over 0.9%. Well, joining me to go through all of this is Rachel Winter. She's Associate Director, Investment Director at Killick & Co. Rachel, very good morning to you. I mean, we spoke to Andy Bird from Pearson earlier in the programme. I mean, this is quite a striking upgrade from them, isn't it?
It is, yeah, and there's a big move in the share price today. It's been quite a rocky few years for Pearson. They've almost become known for having quite unexpected major profit warnings, but they have started trialling this new direct-to-consumer digital subscription service. That's now got 2.75 million registered users, and I think that's the reason why the shares are up so strongly this morning. It almost sounds a bit like Disney Plus, and I'm sure Pearson will be hoping it will be just as successful as that.
And, of course, Andy Bird used to work for Disney, former Disney executive. Among the other trading updates that have caught the eye today, Wetherspoon. I mean, not terribly good news from them.
No, it's a very charismatic trading update, as we've come to expect from Wetherspoon. It was very critical of the parties that took place at 10 Downing Street, and it did make the point that it would have been much safer for all these politicians to have met in a pub with the proper safety measures in place rather than meeting in a private residence. But the upshot really of the trading statement is that the company will make a loss in the first half of its trading year, and that's largely due to Omicron because people have been going to pubs less. Wetherspoons really is a pub that charges very low prices, and because of that, it needs to get very high volumes through, and it hasn't been able to do that with so many people staying at home. It does expect to see more volumes going throughout the rest of this year, but one potential concern is that Wetherspoons does have a slightly older customer base than some of its peers, and therefore its customer base might be a bit more cautious about returning to pubs.
Now, one sector that seems to be thriving right now is luxury goods. Obviously, there were a lot of savings built up during the lockdowns. I mean, I mentioned Richemont earlier on. Prada have had some good numbers out today. And in this country, Burberry too.
Yes, it's been a really strong few months for the luxury goods sector. So this morning on the London market, we had results from Burberry. They've said they've had to discount a lot less items over the last few months. That's led them to put through more sales at full price. And as a result, their full year profit is up 35%. So really an incredible quick gain there. As you said, we've got strong results this morning too from Richemont. And what we're seeing here is that results are particularly strong from North America. And I think we've got a number of trends playing out here. One, as you say, is that a lot more people have saved up money during lockdown and they're spending that on goods rather than services. But I do think another is that a lot of people have started to turn their backs on fast fashion, and therefore they are happy to spend a bit more on a lower number of more quality items. And that's been very, very good news for the luxury sector.
Rachel, we've been talking about inflation this morning and obviously the attendant spike in bond yields that we've seen as well, not just here, but in the United States and in Europe as well. I mean, what are the implications of all this for equity market investors?
Well, it does mean that interest rates are likely to go up more quickly than previously expected. So it really depends on how quickly they start to go up. That will be good news for some parts of the equity market. So, for example, banking stocks have had a very difficult few years. But if interest rates start to rise, then it could be good news for them. But historically, we have seen that growth stocks have performed less well when interest rates have been going up. And that's the reason why we have seen a big rotation out of growth stocks and into more value-orientated stocks over this year so far.
All right, Rachel, got to leave it there. Always good to talk to you. Thanks for joining me today.
Thank you.
Well, still to come here on Ian King Live.
Welcome to Gabby Dave Global. We are a UK-based online e-commerce store. Welcome to Gabby Dave Global. We are a UK-based online e-commerce store, the first of its kind with license to trade in African products. Some of the products are clothing brands and all beauty accessories, hair and beauty brands, natural aphrodisiacs, processed and dried unprocessed food. Our mission at Gabby Dave is to connect African and Caribbean businesses to customers globally. At Gabby Dave, we ensure our sellers get the best deal for their products. We are not just here to help you reach a wider audience. We are also a distribution center to support business growth by fulfilling orders to your customers from our warehouse, making sure customers receive their products on time. We are inviting all Black-owned businesses to trade on our platform because we strongly believe Africans have a unique brand the customer would appreciate globally. So get in touch today and let us make your product and business go far. Here are some of the benefits of using Gabby Dave Global. User-friendly platform, track your shipment, online support, transparent process, multiple SKUs, multiple products, a platform that encourages manufacturers as well as traders. Our marketing and PR interventions amplifies yours. Organized products and categories for easy access and navigation. Access to global community, especially within UK and Europe.
People all over the world to send money to their loved ones in Africa. With SendWave, you can send money to Ghana, Nigeria, Kenya, Uganda, and Tanzania. And the best part is, SendWave is absolutely commission-free. Our exchange rates are excellent. You can see for yourself by checking them out on our website. So how do you use SendWave? SendWave is an app that you can download onto your phone from the App Store or Google Play Store. The app is free to download. After downloading it, just open the app and enter your name, email, and phone number. That's it. You're good to go. Make sure you use the promo code SR. S for Starr, R for Radio. This promo code will give you £5 free credit to send to Africa on your first transaction. Your money will be delivered to your recipient within seconds. Feel free to call me on 0749 7377 647 at any time. I'll be happy to tell you all about SendWave and help you in any way I can. Remember to use the promo code SR for £5 free credit. Medasse.
Hello, lovely listeners. Tune in to the renewed show with Charlotte. Make it a date to listen to me this and every Thursday at 5 p.m. on Starr Radio UK. Tune in to an hour of power, an hour of encouragement, an hour to inspire you to stay positive and strong in this season. See you there and listen.
Hi everyone, it's your girl BB Clement, the author of How to Go From Employee to Entrepreneur and the host of your weekly business show, BB Means Business, the show where we discuss everything you ever wanted to know about business but you were afraid to ask. How do I start my business? How do I raise the finance? How do I grow my business? Where am I going to find my customers? Join me every Tuesday at 1:30 p.m. on Starr Radio UK to get all the information and tips that you need to become a successful entrepreneur and become financially free. Remember, don't let life dictate to you. Rather, put your signature on life.
Are you looking for the fastest, reliable, and trustworthy door-to-door shipment company? Well, look no further. When was the last time your family received a shipment back in Ghana on time and in time? You are not sure? Well, Lamb Shippers, we pride ourselves with being the fastest, reliable, and trustworthy shippers you can use. You are assured of a prompt pickup anywhere in the UK by our personnel. They also make sure your items are well packaged to get to its destination in time. When it comes to door-to-door shipment, look no further. Well, Lamb Shippers, contact us on 07939009321 or 07498911820. Or you can visit our website www.welllamp.co.uk. You can also drop us a mail, info@welllamp@gmail.com. Well Lamp Shippers, fast, reliable, and trustworthy.
Getting onto the property ladder has never been easy until now. Join us this and every Thursday from 7 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. live on the Property Hour Show on Starr Radio UK, where we talk to mortgage brokers, property developers, estate agents, landlord, tenant, property consultants on how to invest or get into the property business and make money. You can't afford to miss this. The Property Hour Show is your best source into the property industry.
It's your man. Show them you got the Coco set. Ladies and gentlemen, it's your boy Harry Song, aka Mr. Songs. This is the Kingmaker Baba for the girls. We're here. This is Starr Radio. Don't go nowhere. UK, London. We call them London for home. For here, we call them London. And I sabi you know, just have fun and stay blessed.
Hi there, this is CJ Buckman, your life coach. And whenever I'm in London, I listen to Starr Radio UK right here. But guess what? You can listen to wherever you are.
Broadcasting worldwide, online 24/7.
All around the world. In your car.
At work.
At home.
On your smartphone.
This is Starr Radio UK. Are you ready to turn it up?
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Birds flying high, you know how I feel. Sun in the sky, you know how I feel. Breeze drifting on by, you know how I feel. It's a new dawn, it's a new day, it's a new life for me. And I'm feeling good. Hey there, this is Archie, and it's a Starr Radio UK.
Let me see your victory signs up like this. Come on, hey. Yeah, 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 yeah. Listen. Me I walk on no evermore. Yeah, Jesus I can't know and one evermore. I tell for to me say no. Victory is mine.
This is Starr Radio UK. In your car,
At work,
at home,
on your smartphone.
all around the world.
Broadcasting worldwide, online 24/7.
Okay, hello and good morning to you wherever you might find yourself on planet Earth. Those of you on other planets as well, I salute you all and I welcome you to the Wednesday edition of the morning show. Today is the 19th day of January, the year 2022, with a time now 10:41 from the House of London. I beseech you, brethren, by the mercies of God, share the broadcast with your friends and loved ones and invite them to like our pages as well. And those of you who have joined us on Facebook, we apologize for the disruption in broadcast when it came to the Facebook since last since Saturday. But hey, it's a new day, it's a new dawn, and we are here this morning to make sure that our time with you will be a wonderful one that you will cherish greatly, that you will never forget. I'm going to do my utmost best, and I trust that you can also do your utmost best by sticking with us, keeping your dial so logged on Starr Radio UK, your favorite African and Caribbean radio station in London. Something being played in the background by Carl Clote in Kunim. I tell you a song that I saw or I just heard overheard yesterday, and I fell in love with it. And I thought, why not share it with our cherished listeners? But I'm saying good morning to my colleagues, Mr. Frank Davis, Mr. Olami Kojo D, Felix all the way in Aberdeen, and my able producer, Mr. Francis Guy. To Mr. Malik Dramani Mahama, Mr. Kofi Ali Abdul Yakin. That's a good morning to you, sir. How are you doing? To my listeners in the USA, victory is mine. Mr. Isaac Makiva, I hope you are doing very well. Sidel and Albert, yes, good morning to you all. Those of you in that's in Chicago and Florida, yes, good morning to you all. And I'm saying special good morning also to Comfort Havit in Minnesota. She's just listening to us this morning. Comfort, I hope you are doing good and the family as well. My regards to them. Josino all the way in Moscow, I salute you, sir. And as I say all the time, from Moscow with love. Josino, I hope you are doing good as well. So keep your dial still logged on Starr Radio UK. My regards to Mr. Dan Tabri, CEO of GIL Accountancy Services, our money man. And all the way in Cyprus, HRH Linda Pallian. Massive good morning to you and to Mr. Pallian as well. So if I've not mentioned your name or acknowledge you, to all and sundry, I say a massive good morning and welcome to the show. 10:44 the time, Starr Radio UK, the station, the Wednesday edition of the morning show. So if it's the first time of tuning in to watch us or listen to us on Wednesday, this is how the program goes. I'm going to be bringing you the code for the day, the weather forecast will follow suit, then the travel update will follow from there. We'll go on to have a look at some of the stories making the rounds across the globe. Exactly at 11 o'clock, we'll be bringing you some details of all the stories. At 11:30, I will open the lines for your contribution to any discussion that is going on. Then at 12 o'clock, I take you straight to the Houses of Parliament for the Prime Minister's question time. For some time now, the Prime Minister has been under a barrage of attack due to his judgment when it came to the party gate, the various parties that are taking place during the lockdown at number 10. Well, we have a few MPs who have petitioned the 1922 committee for him to be ousted But what do you think about all that? We'll bring you more on that, and you can join that and enjoy the debate that will be going on in the Houses of Parliament from 12 o'clock. So in the gist, that's what we're going to be doing today. Once again, welcome to the show. I remain yours sincerely, the one and only.
This is the
Okay, 10:45, so let's crack on. Now, the quote for the day says, anger is an emotion that carries a lot of life-changing power, but it depends on what or who you are angry at and what you do about it. And it's quite true. Are you channeling your anger in the right way to come up with a good solution or a good result? If not, go put some water in your mouth and just stand there quietly and keep yourself, maybe walk or run for some time. You calm down and then you can make the next move. Alright then, 10:46. Let me bring you the weather front or the weather forecast. I woke up this morning, interestingly, everything was nice. It was cold, but it was nice. But there's no need to wait in the car for the defrosting to be done and everything. No. Just hop in straight. And then, so no 2 minutes wait in the car. No. Okay. So, but this is how the weather is going to be for you today in London and the southeast of England. You want to share with us how your weather is wherever you are? Feel free to do so. Well, it's going to be a dry and bright into the afternoon with plenty of sunny spells developing, gentle winds expected as well. Now, this evening and overnight, it will turn clear and chilly for many areas with only a few patches of cloud, gentle winds expected as well.
I am victorious. Victory is my name.
When it comes to the temperature is going to be 9 degrees. The lower is going to be 0. UV level is going to be low. Pollution is going to be low.
Oh, I am victorious.
Sunset is going to be at 16:27 and sunrise for tomorrow morning 07:56 hours. That brings us to the end of the weather forecast for you today, the 19th day of January, the year 2021. From tomorrow, the weather is going to go down once again. We're going to be having tops up to about 5 degrees for tomorrow and Friday. So get yourself prepared for that. But let me say good morning to my lovely granddaughter all the way in Ghana. The one and only Miss Donna Hammond. Yes, I hope you are doing very well, Princess. Good morning to you and to your mom, Pat, and to your dad, Reverend Emmanuel Hammond as well. Massive good morning to you all. And then to my younger one, Archie. I call him Junior. Grand, it is the eldest grand, Good morning to you. And then, I've got the latest addition to the family. Another grand. I'm becoming great grand, But let me say good morning to Nana Prempe. And then to the one and only Mina. Yeah, the latest parents in town. Massive good morning to you. And to the latest addition to the family, the one and only Kwabena. Yes, okay, so now let's crack on. A special good morning to my lovely wife Lottie. I hope you are doing very, very well. Okay, let's crack on to the program now. Starr Radio UK, your favorite African and Caribbean radio station in London. A minute to the top of the hour at a time. The morning show, the program. Now let's look at the travel updates for you today. But as I said earlier on, share the broadcast with your friends and loved ones. Don't you worry, I'll bring you more of that tune in a moment. But let's go straight to the travel updates.
Check it out.
This is Starr Radio UK.
Okay, so keep your eyes on the roads. Keep your eyes on the roads. I'll keep you navigated. I promise I'm on the Star Radio Travel Update. I comes to every weekday from 10:40. It's now 10:50. So what is happening in the travels? On the underground, I can tell you, apart from the Northern Line and the Waterloo and City Lines, all the others are running in good service. But the Northern Line until May 2022, mid-May 2022, no service between Moorgate and Kennington due to major upgrade works. London Bus Route 733 will operate between Moorgate and over via Bank, London Bridge, Barrow, Elephant and Castle and Kennington, and on Monday to Friday. So check before you leave. Please check before you leave so you don't miss any of your appointments there. Now, on the other side, London Overground, TFL Rail, DLRRO in good service. Now, you have to still keep your eyes on the roads as we keep you navigated. And moving on straight to the riverbank this morning. Apart from the Woolwich Ferry that is suspended, all the others also have got good service. Now, let's move on straight to the National Rail as well. On the National Rail this morning, Gatwick Express has got special service, Great Western Railway special service, London Northern Rail special service, ScotRail special service, South Western Railway special service, and South Eastern special service there as well. But keep your eyes on the roads. Keep your eyes on the roads. I will keep you navigated. I promise, our bond. Now, moving to the final segment of the travel update for you today. A3 has got closures, A4 closures, and Central London Red Routes closures there as well. And let me say it once again. Well. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good dawn to you wherever you might be on planet Earth. Enjoy your commute for today. But you know what? Continue to keep those eyes on the road.
Welcome to Gabby Dave Global. We are a UK-based online e-commerce store, the first of its kind with license to trade in African products. Some of the products are clothing brands and all beauty accessories, hair and beauty brands, natural aphrodisiacs, processed and dried unprocessed food. Our mission at Gabby Dave is to connect African and Caribbean businesses to customers globally. At Gabby Dave, we ensure our sellers get the best deal for their products. We are not just here to help you reach a wider audience. We are also a distribution center to support business growth by fulfilling orders to your customers from our warehouse, making sure customers receive their products on time. We are inviting all Black-owned businesses to trade on our platform because we strongly believe Africans have a unique brand the customer would appreciate globally. So get in touch today and let us make your product and business go far. Here are some of the benefits of using Gabby Dave Global. User-friendly platform, track your shipment, online support, transparent process, multiple SKUs, multiple products, a platform that encourages manufacturers as well as traders. Our marketing and PR interventions amplifies yours. Organized products and categories for easy access and navigation. Access to global community, especially within UK and Europe.
A special good morning goes to Chris Fadeli all the way in Newcastle or Leeds, whichever it is. She's the boss lady of GabbyDaveGlobal.com. Chris, good morning to you. She'll be joining me tomorrow on the morning show exactly at 12:45. Those of you who want to be trading, but you cannot trade on eBay, you cannot go to Amazon, not Alibaba. Those of you who have any problems with that, make sure that you tune in. It gives you the if you're in Africa, it gives you that platform to be able to trade internationally. There are platforms that trade only in Africa or on the African continent, but this one gives you the exposure that you need, like that of eBay, Amazon, Alibaba. Okay. But let me say a special good morning to Shina Yusuf. Shina, long time. I hope you are doing very, very well. And let me take this opportunity to say Happy New Year to you, sir. Okay. Listeners, now let's go global trotting. Okay, It's still playing in the background, including more Victory, the Victory song. The stories making the round this morning here in the UK and other part of the world. Number 10 parties. Prime Minister faces growing revolt from Tory MPs. Now Boris Johnson faces a petition. My apologies. Boris Johnson faces a perilous moment in his leadership as group of new MPs reportedly move against him. Wow. So that is the... Is it a 2020 group? Those who just our 2019 group. God bless you, Shina. God bless you. God bless you too. Have a wonderful day as well. Okay. Now, so the Prime Minister is going to be facing all the barrage of questions and stuff like that. Though he's come out to apologize and say, let's wait for Seal Gray's investigation. Well, but will Seal Gray's investigation exonerate him or rather put a nail in his coffin? We'll be looking into all that in a moment. Well, when it comes to the cost of living, yesterday we were talking about it and Kojo was mentioning the fact that everything seemed to be rising. But cost of living is rising at the fastest pace for 30 years. My goodness. The UK's cost of living surged by 5.4% in the 12 months to December, hitting its highest level since 1992. So cost of living in the UK, my goodness, you don't want to talk about it. But while listening to the music in the background tells you that, well, it doesn't matter. Whatever God has said about you would definitely, some way, somehow, it has happened, come to pass. Victory is mine. Well, the Prime Minister is set to ease England's Plan B COVID rules. The decision on the Plan B is finally balanced, but current data is encouraging, the government says. I'm moving on straight to other parts of the world to look at some of the stories because it's a Wednesday edition and we are pressed with time. The Tonga undersea cable may take 4 weeks to repair, so communication is seriously affected there. The World Organization wants COVID not over amid Europe case records. Now, France reports nearly 500,000 new daily cases, with records also broken in Italy and Denmark. And the US urges Putin to take peaceful path on Ukraine. Now, Russia denies any plan to attack Ukraine, but tensions are high as Russian troops carry out drills. And there are about 100,000 of them there on the border. So what is the ploy? Are they trying to just flex their muscles, see what I've got? You know, I'm gonna come after you if you dare. But what do you think about all that? Starr Radio UK. U.S. Capitol Riot Committee targets Rudy Giuliani. Oh my, oh my. The former Trump lawyer is among 4 aides slapped with subpoenas by the Congressional Inquiry. Will he appear or will he do his own thing again and say, dare them and say, let me just get on with my life? Well, in Australia, a man has been charged with a murder after a 5-day search for a girl near Sydney. An arrest over an Australian child found dead in a barrel. What happened to that child? May her soul rest in peace. And may the perpetrator be brought to justice. And U.S. officers have been charged with fatally shooting a girl. Prosecutors dropped charges against 2 teens who were accused of provoking the police to open fire. It is all coming away from Starr Radio UK, your favorite African and Caribbean radio station in London. Now, when we move on to other parts of the world as well, Saudi is one of jail time for posting rumors. Now, women fear being silenced over a claim of sexual harassment after a concert was cancelled in Riyadh. And British Council says a jailed employee has been freed by Iran. Aras Amiri, an Iranian citizen, returns to UK after being acquitted of spying on on appeal. Or maybe this gives some hope to the Radcliffes. Huh? What do you think about that? I think it's a good one there. It is Star Radio UK, your favorite African and Caribbean radio station in London. Ex-rebel hostage to run for Colombian presidency, ex-senator Ingrid Betancourt spent 6 years at a captive after being kidnapped in 2002, and she is said to be preparing to run for presidency.
Victory is mine. Everybody, come on. Yeah, Jesus, I can't know.
Well, Indian tennis star Sania Mirza has announced her retirement. Sania Mirza, a former Wimbledon doubles champion, is one of India's most celebrated sports stars, but this time round decided, I have had enough and I'm retiring. But it's all coming your way from Star Radio UK, your favorite African and Caribbean radio station in London. Well, South African Parliament fire suspect is being freed from hospital. A High Court have overturned a referral for Zandil Murphy to undergo 30 days of psychiatric evaluation. Over 2 years, bodies have been dumped in Kenyan River, but there is a discrepancy over figures, and the team has found the remains of 2 more people. Now, who did that? Are they ritual killings? Or politically motivated killings? Or what is it exactly going on there?
I am victorious. Victory.
Well, interestingly, Ghana was shown the red card when it came to the AFCON. After that, well, when it came to the Comoros, I mean, they are nothing. When we talk about football, I've not heard anything about Comoros. But the Black Stars, oh my goodness, oh my goodness. They were shining in the dark, but they were black, so you couldn't see. Well, in Sudan, Barricade Street has 2 days civil disobedience starts. The Sudanese have done so. What is going to happen there? It's all going to be coming your way from Star Radio UK. Now from Nigeria, how 3 governors colluded with security operatives who killed over 1,000 Southeast residents. I'll bring you more on that front. And bandits right 9 Zamfara communities demand levies. They say, we are in control. You got to pay this. The presidency must shift to south for Nigeria to be peaceful, says lawmaker. It all coming away from Star Radio UK. Politicians should unite to stop banditry. Gumi is saying. The final one that will come from Nigeria. DSS flouts judge's orders. Nnamdi Kanu appears in court in same matter. Is it that he decided this is what I want to wear, this is apparel I want to wear, or they are just frustrating him, not giving me any other clothing to wear? So we'll be looking at all that in a moment. But wherever you are, don't you go away at all. Don't you go away at all. It is Star Radio UK. 3 minutes past the top of the hour at a time.
No one wanted more.
In Ghana, Kwame Nkrumah dislikes Ashanti's. Or to what he's saying. But my question, I mean, that statement, I mean, would that bring about another wedge in the division in the country at the moment? Because we want to somehow see people come together. So why did Kwame Nkrumah dislike the Ashantis? It's because of the attacks that were going on, or the Matemiho and all those things that were going on, the Dombo and whatever they were calling themselves. You more on the front. And interestingly, when a church decides to reclaim its building for office and they have 300 students being displaced, you ask yourself the question, so what exactly had happened? What preparation, or were they told what was going to happen? Well, the PPP is begging the Kufuor government to reinstate the GN Bank, the group Indum Bank. Well, if it happens, then some people will think that, well, what about the other banks? But I think this banking cleanup has actually dealt a blow, serious blow, to some big hooks in that part of the world.
Victorious, victory is my name. I am victorious, victory is my name.
Well, this and a lot more we're going to be looking at in a moment, but wherever you are, enjoy the rest of the music, and while that ends, I'm going to be coming your way with the details of all those stories, starting from Nigeria, of course, and I'll make sure you know exactly what is happening across the globe, from archaeology to zoology, from Accra to Zanzibar. If it's making the headlines, as I say all the time, I'm going to make sure I'm going to deliver on that. Stay tuned.
Victory is my name.
are a UK-based online e-commerce store, the first of its kind with license to trade in African products. Some of the products are clothing brands and all beauty accessories, hair and beauty brands, natural aphrodisiacs, processed and dried unprocessed food. Our mission at Gabby Dave is to connect African and Caribbean businesses to customers globally. At Gabby Dave, we ensure our sellers get the best deal for their products. We are not just here to help you reach a wider audience. We are also a distribution center to support business growth by fulfilling orders to your customers from our warehouse, making sure customers receive their products on time. We are inviting all Black-owned businesses to trade on our platform because we strongly believe Africans have a unique brand the customer would appreciate globally. So get in touch today and let us make your product and business go far. Here are some of the benefits of using Gabby Dave Global. User-friendly platform, track your shipment, online support, transparent process, multiple SKUs, multiple products, a platform that encourages manufacturers as well as traders. Our marketing and PR interventions amplifies yours. Organized products and categories for easy access and navigation. Access to global community, especially within UK and Europe.
Everywhere you go, Afrobeat reggae dancer taking over. Yo, what's up, people? This is a boy Raskin Bobo One. Tune in every day, every night at the Star Radio UK with the big man them Archie. When I say Orta, you say fire.
Welcome back to the program Star Radio UK, your favorite African and Caribbean radio station in London. 11 minutes past 11 the time. The morning show, the program, the Wednesday edition, of course, and therefore you know that the program finishes exactly at 12 o'clock. We take you to the House of Parliament for the Prime Minister's question time. You know, there's lots of it going on there. But hey, don't you worry, I'm going to make your day. So make sure your dials are so logged on Star Radio, okay? Listening to me wherever you might be. Okay, so now let's start from a quick update from Nigeria because we are pressed with time. Now, 3 governors colluded with security operatives who killed over 1,000 Southeast residents. Information coming through is saying that a civic group, the International Society for Civil Liberties and Rule of Law, has revealed that no fewer than 1,150 residents were killed in the Southeast region by the security agents and herdsmen between October 2020 and December 2021. According to the group, about 1,000 people could also not be accounted for as they had been abducted by the security agents. Now, this was disclosed in the latest report of Intersociety made available to some news network. Now, Intersociety disclosed that 3 governors, Hope Uzodinma, Dave Omahi, and Nyesom Wike of Imo, Ebonyi, and Rivers States, respectively, are complicit in the atrocities. The statement read partly, the Nigerian security forces deployed in eastern Nigeria had in 14 months or between late October 2020 and December 2021 killed not less than 1,150 defenseless citizens of eastern Nigeria. Their killings represent monthly average of 85 deaths and daily average of 3, and could be monthly average of 155 and daily average of 5.5 deaths if the presumed dead 1,000 missing citizens are added to it. The security forces also abducted and disappeared till date in the same past 14 months. At least 1,000 unarmed civilians arrested alive and unarmed and taken into security custodies outside the knowledge of their families or lawyers, from where they have gone missing till date. Now, soldiers of the Nigerian Army are found to be responsible for at least 70% of the abduction and disappearances, while the Department of State Services, the NPF, Nigeria Navy, and Nigeria Air Force are also separately and jointly responsible for the remaining 30%. In the area of perpetrator ratio, soldiers of the Nigerian Army and various special guards of the Nigerian Police Force are the lead killers or perpetrators. The trial of Governors Hope Uzodinma of the Imo State, Nyesom Wike of Rivers State, and Dave Omahi of Ebonyi State are the most vicariously culpable governors that aided and abetted the killings and property destruction, including burning of civilian homes and sanctuaries. Now, on the other hand, the widely believed Nigerian state protected herdsmen are responsible for hacking to death in 2021 alone of at least 270 Igbos. Now, their death had majorly occurred in Ebonyi, Enugu, Anambra, Imo, Abia, and Igbo parts of Delta, Edo, Biaruku, and Igbo Akere, Benue, and Kogi states. Well, that's a sad one, but I really hope that is not true. I really, really hope that is not true. That some way, somehow, these individuals who are said to have been dead or killed are maybe being kept somewhere. And maybe one of these days we will come out and say that, look, we are still alive, and the 1,000 who have been abducted are also safe there. I really, really pray to God that that is how the situation is. But if it happened that these people, as being alleged, are culpable, then that's a very sad situation there. Now, terrorists have written to 9 communities within the Bukuyom local government area of Zamfara state, asking them to pay levies or face deadly attacks. The communities which were sent letters include Wawan, Ise Salihu, Wawan, Ise Ibrahim, Gangara, Gandey, Tunga, Gegben, Gale, Nanakri, Ruwan Kura, and Yagama, all in the Bukuyom local government area of Zamfara state. In their reaction to the development, the police command in the state said the alleged levy imposed by bandits on the 9 communities is an old issue. Now, police spokesperson SP Mohammed Shehu told some news network that the issue occurred about a month ago, adding that the police command has since taken action by deploying security personnel to those areas. Now, we'll be following it very, very closely to find out what exactly is going on and as whether the deployment of the police in the communities is helping to abate any attacks of anything of the sort there. Now, when it comes to the presidency in 2023, the elections, Nigerian elections are going to take place in 2023. As some people are saying, no, it's not going to be taking place. Well, it looks like various parts of the country are all getting themselves ready for it. The presidency must shift to south for Nigeria to be peaceful, says lawmaker. Now, I know some people are advocating for that, but as to whether they've got the person to actually represent the country as a whole. Now, the presidency of Nigeria must be shifted to the southern part of Nigeria in 2023, right, so that the country could have peace. Now, political stability, social and economic growth. Now, this view was expressed by a member of the House of Representatives from Oyo State, Honorable Sina Abiola Pella, in a minor yesterday during a peace advocacy mission to Niger State and a visit to former military president General Ibrahim Badamasi Babangida. Retired at his minor uphill residence. Now, Pele, who fielded questions from newsmen after the visit held behind closed doors, declared that everybody knows that the presidency should be in the south, because if you are promoting peace, you will understand that the Yoruba community are agitating for a Yoruba nation, the Igbos are agitating for a Biafra, and you have northern Nigeria that have been in position of presidency for an uninterrupted 8 years of 2 terms. Now, you should be able to take the presidency to the south if you want peace. Now, going on in a quote, he said, for you to promote peace, you should be able to take the presidency to the south, but you can't do otherwise if you don't want to promote peace, Pella said. He, however, pleaded with the nation's political stakeholders to put the unity and the peace of Nigeria first and above any other consideration while taking critical and crucial decisions for the country. Coming away from Starr Radio UK, let me say a special good morning to Anthony Adedeji. Anthony, I hope you are doing very, very well. Okay, now moving on straight to some other questions, stories, my apologies, pertaining to insecurity. Well, politicians unite to stop banditry. That's what Gumi is saying. He goes on further to say, member representing Gumi Bukuyo Federal Constituency of Zamfara State, Honorable Suleiman Abubakar Gumi, is a member of the House Committee on Appropriation and Internally Displaced Persons. And he's the one saying that Nigerians are alarmed at the recent massive killings in Zamfara State, especially the aged, children and women on their farms. Now, one life lost is like killing the whole of humanity. Having tens of people killed in cold blood is cause for concern for every human being. So it is worrisome development, especially which after the long silence of reduced killings, the sudden escalation definitely calls for concern. We lost about 56 souls in one attack, and a lot of properties and people are living from hand to mouth, and still the little they have is being destroyed. Their animals are being killed or carted away. Children, especially male child, being killed. It is worrisome development. A lot is being done recently. The governor of the state, Governor Bello Matawale, went to the Niger Republic. The visit is another strategy to cut the supply of arms and ammunition, because Niger is the main route, or Niger is the main route for the influx of weapons into the state. If we can get Niger Republic to block all access to all entry points, then what the bandits and what would the bandits do from there? But well, do you think that putting political affiliations aside and just everybody just putting their heads together to say, how do we make our people feel safe and be able to go about their day-to-day activity? Do you think that is something that can happen? Do you think that is the way? Some would say it's gotten to a point where people think there is no going back. But what do you think about that? Well, it is Starr Radio UK. It is your favorite African and Caribbean radio station in London. I know that still Sunday Igboho is in Benin and in the custody of the security agencies there. What has happened to his case? Nothing. But well, we'll be following all those stories as the days go by. Let me once again say, Anthony, yes, I promise you we'll be doing all those. But the final story from Nigeria pertains to DSS flouting judge's order as Nnamdi Kanu appears in court in same attire. But the question that I was asking this morning was that maybe that is what he loves to wear. You know, some people have got, this is my custom-made clothing that I will want. So I will want to be in that one. Or maybe he has a couple of them. Or is it that that's the only one? And is it that it is dirty or something of the sort? And therefore, but well, despite the order of Justice Binta Nyako of a federal high court sitting in Abuja that the Department of State Services should allow Nnamdi Kanu to have a change of clothes, the leader of the proscribed indigenous people of Biafra yet again appeared in court on Wednesday with the same designer wear he wore when he was rearrested and brought back to Nigeria in June 2021. The Punch newspaper said earlier reported that Kanu's lead counsel Mike Ozekome on Tuesday drew the attention of the judge to the treatment his client was being subjected to in the custody of the DSS. This is despite an earlier order by Justice Nyako in December 2021 that the secret police allowed the IPOB leader to practice his faith, have his bath, change his clothes, and eat properly. And Justice Nyako on Tuesday reiterated the order and asked the secret police to allow Kanu some comfort in custody. Well, I don't want to see him in these clothes again. This one is almost off-white. Also, make sure that you allow him to exercise, Nyako had said. But the DSS flouted the order of the judge as the secret police produced Kanu in court on Wednesday, clad in the same attire. Kanu, 54, was born on September 25, 1967 at Afarewa in Abia State. Well, so I ask the question once again: is the DSS a law to themselves, or are they subject to the rule of law? And therefore, when the courts or a judge rules that this is what you have to do, as to whether they will adhere to that. But it's sad. It's sad. We said we're living in a democracy, constitutional rule, but we see some arms of governance that's behaving rudely, as if their heads are not straight. Okay, well, it is Starr Radio UK. That brings us to the end of the news making the rounds in Nigeria, and it's now time for us to take a quick break, and then we quickly bring you all the others that is happening here in the UK. Plan B. Well, okay, some breaking news that have come through straight on the Kano's case. Information says that Justice Binta Nyako of the Federal High Court in Abuja on Wednesday adjourned the trial of the detained leader of the outlawed indigenous people of Biafra, Nnamdi, till February 16. So he's going to be back in the courts on February 16. We'll hope to see whether he'll be coming in a suit or another set of clothing. Reports that Kano is facing charges bordering on alleged terrorism and treasonable felony. Now, earlier, the Nigerian separatist leader had pleaded not guilty to 15 charges bordering on treasonable felony and terrorism brought against him by the federal government. Meanwhile, contrary to the order of Justice Nyako, Kano showed up before the court wearing the same designer clothes he had on since June 2021 when he was arrested. Well, maybe that's the only clothing that they have, and maybe they are giving you something in the prison and say, I don't want to put that on yet because I'm not your subject. But what do you think about all that? It's Star Radio UK. It is your favorite African and Caribbean radio station in London. A quick break, and we come back with you.
Hi everyone, it's your girl BB Clement, the author of How to Go From Employee to Entrepreneur and the host of your weekly business show, BB Means Business, the show where we discuss everything you ever wanted to know about business but you were afraid to ask. How do I start my business? How do I raise the finance? How do I grow my business? Where am I going to find my customers? Join me every Tuesday at 1:30 p.m. on Star Radio UK to get all the information and tips that you need to become a successful entrepreneur and become financially free. Remember, don't let life dictate to you. Rather, put your signature on life.
Well, plan B for you here in the UK. Government is looking into, moving us back into taking us out of the plan B for you, and that is introduction to the UK stories making the rounds here. Well, the story says that Johnson said to ease England's plan B COVID rules, and it says Boris Johnson is expected to announce an easing of England's COVID rules when he makes a statement on plan B later. Now, earlier, Mr. Johnson updated cabinet ministers on the plans ahead of his statement to Parliament this afternoon. A government spokeswoman said a decision on the rules was finally balanced and current data was encouraging with cases falling. The plan B measures, including face masks and COVID passes, are due to expire on the 26th of January. The government has committed to reviewing them before this date. Now, the restrictions were introduced in December to slow the spread of the highly transmissible Omicron variant and to buy time to administer more booster jabs. On Tuesday, Health Secretary Sajid Javid told MPs he was cautiously optimistic that we will be able to substantially reduce restriction next week, and asked whether restrictions will be lifted during the hospital visit. Mr. Johnson said, "We've got to be careful about COVID. We've got to continue to remember that it's a threat." Well, so that's what he said. But well, as I said, he's still facing his Waterloo when it comes to the party gate. So what is happening there? On the front, Boris Johnson faces more questions about his leadership at Prime Minister's Question Time as the row over lockdown parties at number 10 continues. Now, growing revolt among Tory MPs, including those elected in the 2019 election, poses a threat to the Prime Minister. But one MP claims around half of a group of 20 new MPs submitted no confidence letter on Wednesday morning. If 54 Tory MPs submit letters, it will trigger a leadership contest. Now, only 7 are known to have done so, but one MP said they thought the threshold could be reached shortly. But only But only Mr. MP Sir Graham Brady, chair of the Conservative backbench in 1922 committee, who receives and counts up to the no confidence requests, knows the exact numbers. Now, Defense Minister James Hippie urged his Tory colleagues to show cool heads, adding now was not the right time for the country to change leader. Now, many Conservatives have said they want to wait for civil servant Sue Gray to complete her report into gatherings in Downing Street before deciding what to do. My apologies there. Yes, it's all coming away from Starr Radio. So far, 6 Conservative MPs have publicly stated that they have submitted letters of no confidence in Mr. Johnson to Sir Graham. And while some have been told a 7th, Christian Whitford, the MP for Bury South, has also sent in a letter. Now, how is the Prime Minister's question time today going to look like? It's going to be quite a harrowing time for the Prime Minister, let me put it that way. But it's all coming away from Starr Radio. 11:30 the time. Let me announce the lines open because we have only 30 minutes more to cross over to the House of Parliament for the Prime Minister's question time. Now, if you want to join in the conversation, call us on 0208 133 2257 and 58 0208 133 2257 or 58. If you happen to be in the US, Canada, or the Caribbean area, it's 001-718-303-2737 001-718-303-2737. You can text or WhatsApp us. It's 075-3966-1744 075-3966-1744. Our Twitter handle is Starr Radio UK and email address is info@starradiouk.com info@starradiouk.com. So make a date, make sure you call in and contribute your quota. Don't be a stranger, do you? All right then. So it's all Starr Radio, okay? Now let's move on to some other stories making the rounds as well. Yesterday during the program, Kojo in his final remarks was talking about the cost of living that is skyrocketing. Now, soaring food costs and energy bill crisis are driving consumer prices up at their fastest rate nearly 30 years, latest figures show. Now, consumer price inflation surged to 5.4% in the 12 months to December, up from 5.1% the month before. In another blow to struggling families, the last time inflation was higher was in March 1992, when it was 7.1%. And with gas and electricity costs set to increase further soon, analysts warn it could reach that level again. Now, Chancellor Rishi Sunak said he understood the pressure people were facing, but the opposition Labour Party said working families face an impending triple whammy of financial pressures. Now, the latest figures will increase pressure on the government already under fire over tax rises set to take effect in April. Now, they will also fuel calls for the Bank of England to raise interest rate in a bid to bring inflation closer to its 2% target. Now, the latest rise was announced by the Office of National Statistics, the ONS, which said increases in prices of furniture and clothing also contributed to the December rise in the cost of living. But wages have been stagnant. Inflation is the rate at which prices are rising. If the price of a bottle of milk is £1 and it rises by 5p, then the milk inflation is 5%. So a bit of education there for you. You got it? Good. Okay, so what do you think about all that? Do you think that, are we going to be selling through it like that with the interest rate probably going to be going up as well and energy prices going to skyrocket again? What do you think is going to be? Oh my goodness. Maybe you need a plan B. So enjoy this song whilst I take you to get myself ready to take you to other parts of the world. But feel free to join in the discussion, call us, or post your comments on our Facebook page.
And I say me proof you any my baby poppy run ever bomb me car when you drop Kona koto mechia menria no who say kutamia na ya me ne wodia ampa e pronechi matnada me pasa
magrada, Michelle, Lippy Laba Laba. Composada, Nipatane once na, Mohammed Papa, Rostona, yes, why you saw, but I'm not looking at it. 50 minutes, go see Edwada, so one woman, dear.
This is Starr Radio UK.
You are listening to Starr Radio Morning Show. Enlighten your day with Starr Radio.
Minister, catch your boy in soon, coffee, F. Wait, so your plan, babe. Being coffee and I'm a train. And now send me proof, yeah, and mammy, but my babe, pump, wait, so your plan, babe. Being coffee and I'm a train. And now send me proof, yeah, and mammy, but my babe, pump, Reggie, Janet.
Okay, so something from the old Reggie Rockstone. Plan B for you. So government going to, look to ease the plan B out of plan B when it comes to the COVID restrictions. What do you think? Well, in the WHO is saying that, look, be very, very careful. Be very, very careful because the wave is now in Europe and we have France hitting almost about, call it 500,000. And what do you call it? Other countries as well. Denmark and Italy also hitting record highs. So, well, we're not going there, are we? Some will say people are going there, going to be trooping in. But interestingly, how this Omicron variant affect people? I mean, you have people getting infected today, and then they stay on, and the next few minutes they are infected again. So it's quite. I think the scientists will have to come out to tell us after you've had it, how long does the antibodies in there help you out? Because you've taken first, second vaccines. I don't know whether those who have taken the booster are also being infected. If you have taken a booster and you've been infected by it, I want to know what you think about that. But it's quite a worrying trend. That is all coming away from Starr Radio UK, your favorite African and Caribbean radio station in London. Okay, moving on straight to other parts of the world. Tonga undersea cable may take 4 weeks to repair. Its only undersea cable was destroyed in an eruption, cutting it off from the rest of the world. Wow. So how was that undersea cable? Is it not flexible a bit? So how come that it got? So I'm just trying to imagine how maybe a cable. I mean, it might be that thick. Is it? Yeah. Call it 6 inches thereabout, the diameter. What do you think about that? Okay. Well, Starr Radio UK, we hope that is sorted out and all the necessary relief agencies are able to go there to give them a hand to solve whatever thing that is going on in that part of the world. But 11:37, let's quickly look at some of the stories and then we'll move on from there. The U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken has called on Russia to take a diplomatic and peaceful path as fears mount of a new invasion of Ukraine. An estimated 100,000 Russian troops have been deployed near Ukraine's borders, and Mr. Blinken visiting Kiev said Russian plans were in plans to beef them up at short notice. Now, Russia has repeatedly denied planning to invade neighboring Ukraine, but senior U.S. officials say Moscow could attack at any point. Now, my question is, do you think that if I want to attack you, I'll come and tell you that, look, I'm going to be attacking you, so you can get yourself ready? Nah, I'm not going to be doing that. But I'm going to be attacking you when you are you less aware that I want to do so. I'll just, take you unawares. That's how it's going to be. But is that what Russia is planning to do? But well, the US is watching and NATO is watching very, very well. Now, ahead of his visit to Kiev, senior State Department officials indicated that Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov may be offered the option of a diplomatic off-ramp in Geneva. The White House said no option was off the table. Now, Russia has made a raft of demands to Western governments, including that Ukraine should never join NATO, and that the defensive alliance military activities should be limited in member states, including Poland, including Poland. Now, talks between the West and Russia last week failed to reach a breakthrough, with some of Moscow's demands rejected as non-starters. Now, in a quote, he said, "I strongly hope that we can keep this on a diplomatic and peaceful path. But ultimately, that's going to be President Putin's decision," Mr. Blinken told reporters. Now, it is Star Radio UK, your favorite African and Caribbean radio station in London, bringing the time now to exactly 20 minutes to the top of the hour. It is the Wednesday edition of the morning show. Yes, so let's move on to some other stories. As I said, we are pressed with time this morning. Well, so bringing something from the U.S., the U.S. Capitol Riot Committee has issued a subpoena to Rudy Giuliani. It says that the congressional panel investigating last year's U.S. Capitol riot have issued a subpoena to former President Donald Trump's personal lawyer, Rudy Giuliani. The House of Representatives committee demand Mr. Giuliani and 3 others hand over documents and sit for depositions on the 8th of February. Now, Mr. Giuliani has traveled the U.S. after the 2020 elections to promote the baseless claims that Mr. Trump had won the vote. The riot on the 6th of January was stoked by falsehoods about mass voter fraud. Now, subpoenas were issued on Tuesday to 3 other Trump associates. Jenna Ellis, Mr. Giuliani's assistant, who the committee says prepared memos claiming that the election could be legally overturned, and then Sidney Powell, a former lawyer to Mr. Trump, who claimed that a court filing would unleash a kraken of evidence, but it never materialized. And then Boris Epstein, a Trump campaign strategist, who the panel says held a call with Mr. Trump on the morning of the riot to discuss tactics to delay certification. Now, Benny Thompson, the Democratic lawmaker who is leading the House Elect Committee, said in a statement that all 4 aides advanced unsupported theories about election fraud, pushed efforts to overturn the election result, or were in direct contact with the former president about attempts to stop the counting of the electoral vote. It's not clear whether the 4 of them intended to comply with the committee. If they refuse, they could be held in contempt of Congress and face possible criminal prosecution. The subpoena calls on Mr. Giuliani, a long-time ally of Mr. Trump, to submit a sworn testimony and provide documents. Well, it's coming your way from Star Radio UK, your favorite African and Caribbean radio station in London. Touching on one other story from the Middle East as well. Saudi authorities have warned that anyone spreading baseless rumors on social media could face up to 5 years in prison and a huge fine. It comes after a cancelled concert in Riyadh led to reports online that young women were being sexually harassed as they tried to make their way home. Some of the women have said that of their fears, told of their fears over posting about what happened after the event. The Saudi entertainment chief appeared to mock their claims in several tweets. Now, this is the latest development in the cultural social clash that the opening of Saudi Arabia from an austere and deeply conservative society to one that now hosts mass entertainment events has engendered. Now, the much anticipated concert headlined by the K-pop band Stray Kids on the evening of the 14th of January was called off at the last moment due to high winds. Disappointed fans struggled to find their way home from the venue on the outskirts of Saudi's capital, Riyadh. Okay, so these are some of the stories making the rounds there. It's all coming away from Star Radio UK, your favorite African and Caribbean radio station in London. Well, one story from China as well before we move on. Now, Winter Olympic, China sells Yen as a winter sports hub as the Beijing Winter Olympics draw near. The troubled Xinjiang region is being painted as a poster destination for China ballooning winter sports industry. Many foreign firms are rushing to be part of that, despite Western countries alleging that China is committing genocide against ethnic Muslims. The reach of the Winter Games in China is extending far beyond Beijing. There are some of the stories making the rounds in that part of the world. A final story, as my producer says, touch on that. Now, a man has been charged with a murder after a child was found dead in a barrel in Australia. Okay, bushland. The victim is believed to be a 9-year-old girl who went missing last week from a property in the Blue Mountains near Sydney, police have said. Her disappearance sparked a massive search that ended on Tuesday when officers discovered the child's body near a river in a neighboring area. Police said a 31-year-old man had been arrested in the flat in inner Sydney. He faced a court on Wednesday but did not enter a plea on a murder charge or apply for bail. His next hearing will be in March. The girl, who cannot be identified for legal reasons, was on holiday with her mother when she disappeared last Thursday. She was reported missing the next morning. Over the next 5 days, police officers, firefighters and state emergency services volunteers scoured dense terrain in the area for clues, but ended up finding her dead in a barrel. Well, Star Radio UK, your favorite African and Caribbean radio station in London. Well, when it comes to the dumping of bodies in Kenyan River, it's something that is worrying. But who should be blamed for that? The question is being asked. Now, Kenyan police now say that incidents of decomposing bodies being recovered from a river in the western part of the country have been going on for 2 years. However, police spokesman Bruno Shioso said that investigations had yet to reveal those responsible for the motive behind the killings. There seems to be discrepancy over the numbers. On Tuesday, activists went to Yala Sub-Country Hospital, about 40 kilometers 24 miles northeast of the lakeside city of Kisumu, and said they counted 20 bodies recovered from the river Yala, which had been unclaimed. The hospital only keeps unclaimed bodies for 90 days, they must have been recovered over the last 3 months. It's all coming away from Star Radio UK, your favorite African and Caribbean radio station in London. Well, Mali has been making overtures to neighboring Guinea and Mauritania as its 6 allies following last week's decision by the regional bloc ECOWAS to impose sanctions. The move came after the military government announced a 4-year delay to elections originally planned for February, following coups in August 2020 and May 2021. The sanctions include the closure of the vast landlocked West African country borders and a trade embargo. Now, Mali hopes Guinea will be receptive as it too has been suspended from ECOWAS following a coup last September. While Mauritania is not an ECOWAS member, a large delegation went to Conakry on Monday and another to Nouakchott on Tuesday to discuss ways to ease the movement of people and goods. Now, besides Guinea and Mauritania, the country shares border with Algeria, Burkina Faso, Niger, Ivory Coast, Niger, and Senegal. They share borders with lots of these countries. Now, that means that Mali is a big place. But how is it going to fare for them? Well, we'll be following it very, very closely. A man has been accused of setting fire to South Africa's parliament is being released from psychiatric hospital and moved to an irregular prison from where he can request bail. This follows a decision by a high court which said the Zandili Christmas Murphy's referral to Valkenburg Psychiatric Hospital in Cape Town to undergo 30 days of evaluation was unlawful. Now, the prosecutors said they had a report that he suffered from paranoid schizophrenia, diagnosis both he and his lawyers have rubbished. The further detention of Mr. Murphy in Valkenburg is unlawful and should come to an end with immediate effect, Judge President John Hilope said on Tuesday, ordering he be moved on Wednesday morning. The 49-year-old has denied setting the Parliament building in Cape Town ablaze. Well, it is all coming your way from Star Radio UK, your favorite African and Caribbean radio station in London. Chad has also freed 250 rebels ahead of talks. So that's a good one from there. Time will not permit me to look into that. But, well, so moving on, one other story. Morocco and Gabon through after draw. Morocco drew with Gabon in one of the best games of the African Cup of Nations so far, as both sides progress to Group C. But interestingly, Ghana, my favorite country, Ghana has suffered a humiliating group stage exit at the Nations Cup as the four-time champions are beaten 3-2 by the debutants, Comoros. Now, as I said earlier on, when it came to football, I never heard anything about the Comoros at all. So how come Ghana has sat down for them to beat them? Well, you know, the players were even given, were promised $30,000 each if they were able to go through the next stage. Well, but I think when things fall apart and the center cannot hold, no matter what you do, you can put glue, you can put whatever, it wouldn't work. And that seemed to be the trend or what happened on that front. This all coming your way from Star Radio UK, your favorite African and Caribbean radio station in London. Bringing the time now to exactly 8 minutes to the top of the hour. So in the next 8 minutes, I'll be taking you straight to the Houses of Parliament for the Prime Minister's question time. But I was trying to find a story where it's all being claimed that, well, the bad performance of the Black Stars is related to the expose by Anas. They said that is what has caused the Black Stars to be playing woefully bad or suffering all that. Now, but that story seems to have eluded me. I'm trying to find it and see whether I can touch on it before we go. But it looks like, well, I'm out of luck there. Well. It is all Star Radio UK. But well, they were not playing good. And if they are out, somebody say they are out. Let's get them out. All right then. The Fix the Country sides of EC for failing to hold a SAR parliamentary election. The people of SAR without parliamentary representation in the 8th Parliament of Ghana. The office of the President and the office of the Chief Justice are said to have stated that they have received a petition for the removal of the chairperson of the Electoral Commission, Jane Mensah, and her deputies. The leadership of the pressure group Fix the Country petitioned the office of the President to cause the removal of the Electoral Commissioner and his deputies for failing to oversee a parliamentary election for the people of Central Kofi, Akpafo, Lekpe, and Lolobe. In a Facebook post cited by the Ghana Web, the lead petitioner, Oliver Baker Vomawo, stated that the President, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, has communicated his instructions to the Chief Justice to commence impeachment processes against the EC officials in a correspondence. Now, earlier today, the 18th of January, we, the 46 Ghanaians who petitioned the Chief Justice through the President in initiating a process for the impeachment of the chair and deputies of the Electoral Commission in the connection of the disenfranchisement of the people of Central Kofi, Lologbi, Akpafo, and Lekpe received responding letters from the offices of the President and the Chief Justice. But what is going to become of it? This is Ghana, man. Maybe something different. But what do you think? 6 minutes to the top of the hour at a time. Star Radio UK, the station, the morning show, the program. Well, that Asante of late has been making lots of headlines there. But this time around, it says, 2482 has alleged that Osajifo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, the first president of Ghana, did not like the people of the Ashanti region. Now, speaking of the first Ashanti Man Council meeting for the year at the Menchia Palace in Kumasi on Monday, the overlord of the Ashanti Kingdom acknowledged that even though Nkrumah did not like them, that's the Asantis, he carved the Bono Ahafo region out of the Western Ashanti. He said the new region Nkrumah created at that time did not alter the existence of the traditional arrangement. Therefore, the creation of the Bono region cannot affect the traditional autonomy of the Ashanti Kingdom. He indicated that the authority and autonomy of Ashanti Man has never been in dispute, adding new political administrative regions do not alter existing traditional arrangements. Now, Timfor noted that similar moves in the colonial and post-independent era could not alter already existing Ashanti Man. He, however, stated emphatically that no chief should consider the existing arrangement now due to the creation of new regions. The Ashanti Man Council is an assembly of paramount chiefs from the Ashanti, Bono East, and Bono regions that pay homage to the Golders too. Now, other chiefs are from the Ahafo Eastern, Western, and Western North and Oti regions. Now, government recently created the Bono East and Ahafo regions. Before this, a similar incident happened during the regime of Dr. Kwame Nkrumah. He carved the Bono Ahafo region out of Western Ashanti. Now, do you think that some of the chiefs or the rulers, they will say, well, we are now a new region, we have got our own regional minister, we got our own MPs, we got our own district, so we want to be by ourselves? And somebody stand up and say that I'm the new chief, the Bono chief, and I'm not going to pay homage to the Asante Hene. What is going to happen? Would Asante Hene have a right to go and maybe arrest him or send his troops to go and fight him or anything of the sort? And the national security agencies sit down and just watch? What do you think is going to happen there? Well, we'll be following all this as the days go on. But this is where I bring the first part of the program to a close, because we'll be going straight to the Houses of Parliament for the Prime Minister's question time. That will be after this song from Genoble and Bule. It says Bonena Dos. Enjoy. And when that song ends, you don't hear from me. It's been me, Archie. I say have a lovely day. I'll see you tomorrow for the Thursday edition of the morning show. Bye bye for now.
Eja onyame womba for bread.
Prime Minister, question one.
Mr. Speaker, I will shortly be updating the House on this country's fantastic progress in tackling COVID-19, including our booster programme, enabling us to ease Plan B measures and restore the ancient liberties of this country. Mr. Speaker, I know that the whole House will be delighted that Her Majesty the Queen has given permission for a special medal to be awarded to all those who deployed to Kabul. Operation Pitting saw our servicemen and women deliver the largest British evacuation since the Second World War. The whole country can be immensely proud of their service. Mr. Speaker, this morning I had meetings with ministerial colleagues and others. In addition to my duties in this House, I shall have further such meetings later today.
Wendy Chin.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Last year we were told by the Prime Minister there were no Downing Street parties. Then it turned out there were parties, but we were assured that no rules were broken. Last week we heard that rules may have been broken, but that he thought it was a work event. And now yesterday from the man who wrote the rules, it was, well, nobody told me what those rules were. Mr. Speaker, 5 weeks ago the people of North Shropshire were clear, and the people of North East Fife are being clear to me now. No matter the excuse, there is no excuse for taking the British people for fools. Will the Prime Minister agree it is now time for him to resign?
No, Mr. Speaker, but what I can tell her is that, as I said to the House last week, I apologise sincerely for any misjudgments that were made, but she must contain her impatience, Mr. Speaker, and wait for the inquiry next week before she draws any of the conclusions that she's just asserted.
John Burham.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Latest evidence and research shows that the UK is the most attractive country in the world amongst young people across the G20. Amid intense soft power competition from other countries, including China, can the Prime Minister assure me and other members of the British Council All-Party Group that the government will meet the British Council's funding requirements to ensure it doesn't have to close any more offices overseas, and to ensure that it commits all its energy to retaining our top spot?
Mr. Speaker, I entirely share my right honourable friend's enthusiasm for the British Council, which is a wonderful institution that we all love, and that's why we're providing through the FCDO £189 million of funding this year, a 27% increase, Mr. Speaker, in spite of all the difficulties this country is facing, 27% increase on the previous financial year. We've also provided a loan facility of up to £145 million to support all the wonderful work that the British Council does.
We now come to the Leader of the Opposition, Keir Starmer.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Can I start by warmly welcoming... Can I start...
Listen to the Prime Minister.
Can I just say, I expect people to listen to the Prime Minister. I certainly don't want the Leader of the Opposition shouted down. You might not like the day, but this is the day that we've got. Keir Starmer.
Mr. Speaker, I'm not bothered. I assumed it was directed over here. Can I start by warmly welcoming the Honourable Member for Bury South to his new place and to the Parliamentary Labour Party. Mr. Speaker, like so many people up and down the country, he has concluded that the Prime Minister and the Conservative Party have shown themselves incapable of offering the leadership and government this country deserves, whereas the Labour Party stands ready to provide an alternative government that the country can be proud of. Mr. Speaker, the Labour Party has changed, and so has the Conservative Party. He and anyone else who wants to build a new Britain built on decency, security, prosperity and respect is welcome in my Labour Party. Every week, the Prime Minister offers absurd and frankly unbelievable defences to the Downing Street parties, and each week it unravels.
I've been elected the chair. I don't need to be told how to conduct the business. So if somebody wants to do some direction, I'll start directing them out of the chamber. Keir Starmer.
Mr. Speaker, I see the very noise. I'm sure the Chief Whip has told them to bring their own booze.
Order. Let's try and get on with questions. It's going to be a long day if not. Keir Starmer.
Mr. Speaker, first he said there were no parties. Then the video landed, blowing that defence out the water. Next he said he was sickened and furious when he found out about the parties, until it turned out that he himself was at the Downing Street garden party. Then last week he said he didn't realise he was at a party, and surprise, surprise, no one believed him. So this week he's got a new defence. Nobody warned me that it was against the rules. That's it. And nobody told him. Since the Prime Minister wrote the rules, why on earth does he think that his new defence is going to work for him?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Well, he talks about the rules, and let me repeat what I said to the honourable lady across the aisle earlier on. Of course, Mr. Speaker, we must wait for the outcome of the inquiry. But I renew what I've said, Mr. Speaker. But when it comes to his view,
Nobody believes what you say. Can we have a little less? I want to this Prime Minister like I wanted to leader of the opposition. I want the same courtesy from both sides. Prime Minister.
Yeah. Well, Mr. Speaker, if we'd listened to the right honourable gentleman about COVID restrictions, which is the substance of his question, then Mr. Speaker, we would have been in lockdown after July. If this is the truth, if we listened to the Labour front bench in the run-up to Christmas and New Year, Mr. Speaker, we would have stayed in restrictions with huge damage to the economy. And it's because of the judgments that I've taken and that we have taken in Downing Street that we now have the fastest growing economy in the G7 and GDP, Mr. Speaker, now back up above pre-pandemic levels. And as for Bury South, Mr. Speaker, as for Bury South, let me say to the right gentleman, Mr. Speaker, by all leave, may I say to the right honourable gentleman that the Conservative Party won Bury South for the first time in generations under this Prime Minister, with an agenda of uniting and levelling up and delivering for the people of Bury South. And Mr. Speaker, we will win again in Bury South at the next election under this Prime Minister.
Look, it's important I want to hear both sides, and I don't want this continuous chant, because if we do, there'll be less people on these benches, and the same on the other side. I expect both sides to be heard with courtesy. Keir Starmer.
Bury South is now a Labour seat, Prime Minister.
Order. Did somebody want me to apologise? No, somebody shouted apologise. I hope it wasn't aimed at me. No. And so we'll also have less from that corner, Keir Starmer.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Not only did he write the rules, but some of his staff say they did warn him about attending the party on the 20th of May 2020. Now, I've heard the Prime Minister's very carefully crafted response to that accusation. It almost sounds like a lawyer wrote it. So I'll be equally careful with my question. When did the Prime Minister first become aware that any of his staff had concerns about the 20th of May party?
Mr. Speaker, I'm grateful to Right Honourable Gentleman for repeating the question that he's already asked. We have answered, Mr. Speaker, that it is for the inquiry to come forward with an explanation of what happened, and I'm afraid he simply must wait. But he asks about my staff, Mr. Speaker. He asks about my staff and what my staff are doing and what they have told me. And I can tell him, Mr. Speaker, that they have taken decisions throughout this pandemic that he has opposed to open up in July, Mr. Speaker, as I've said, to mount the fastest vaccine rollout in Europe. and Mr. Speaker, to double the speed of the booster rollout, with the result that we have the most open economy in Europe, Mr. Speaker, and we have more people in employment and more employees on the payroll now than there were before the pandemic began. That is what my staff have been working on in Downing Street, Mr. Speaker, and I'm proud of them.
Keir Starmer.
So, Mr. Speaker, apparently Sue Gray is going to tell the Prime Minister when he first became aware that his staff had concerns about the May 20th. The Prime Minister's account gets more extraordinary with each version of his defence. If the Prime Minister's new defence were true, it requires him to suggest that his staff are not being truthful when they say they warned him about the party. It requires the Prime Minister to expect us to believe that whilst every other person who was invited on the 20th of May to the party was told it was a social occasion, he alone was told it was a work meeting. It also requires the Prime Minister to ask us to accept that as he waded through the empty bottles and platters of sandwiches, he didn't realise it was a party. Does the Prime Minister realise how ridiculous that sounds?
Mr. Speaker, I've said what I've said about the events in Number 10. He will have to wait for the. He'll have to wait for the. And Mr. Speaker, I think he asks for further clarification. I think there are lots of people who are interested. I say this entirely in passing, Mr. Speaker. Lots of people are interested in the exact legal justification from the learned leader of the opposition for the picture of him drinking a pint of beer or a bottle of beer. Mr. Speaker, I merely, perhaps he could tell the House about that in a minute, Mr. Speaker. But what I can tell the House is that throughout the pandemic, people across government have been working flat out to protect the British public with huge quantities of PPE, so we can now make 80% in this country, with the biggest and most generous furlough scheme virtually anywhere in the world, and the fastest. And by the way, Mr. Speaker, if we listened to them, we would have stayed in the European Medicines Agency, and we would never have been able to deliver the vaccine rollout at the speed that we did.
Keir Starmer.
Mr. Speaker, if the Prime Minister thinks the only accusation he faces that he once had a beer with a takeaway, then Operation Save Big Dog is in deeper trouble than I thought. If a Prime Minister misleads Parliament, should they resign?
So, Mr. Speaker, let's be absolutely clear. The Right Honourable Gentleman is continuing to ask a series of questions which he knows will be fully addressed by the inquiry. He is wasting this House's time. He's wasting the people's time, Mr. Speaker. He continues to be completely irrelevant, Mr. Speaker, because we have an inquiry. We have an inquiry, Mr. Speaker, and I'm not going to anticipate that inquiry any further. What I can tell him is that it is because of the judgments that were taken in Downing Street and because of the willingness of the British people to put trust, by the way, Mr. Speaker, in those judgments, to come forward in huge numbers to get vaccinated, which people did, and I thank them for it from the bottom of my heart. People did that because they listened to our messages, Mr. Speaker, and it's as a result of that that we now have the fastest growing economy in the G7 and youth unemployment, which he ought to care about, youth unemployment at a record low, Mr. Speaker.
Keir Starmer.
Well, I know it's not going well, Prime Minister, but look on the bright side. At least the staff at Number 10 know how to pack a suitcase. Mr. Speaker, last year, Her Majesty the Queen sat alone when she marked the passing of the man she'd been married to for 73 years. She followed the rules of the country that she leads. On the eve of that funeral, a suitcase was filled with booze and wheeled into Downing Street. A DJ played, and staff partied late into the night. The Prime Minister has been forced to hand an apology to Her Majesty the Queen. Isn't he ashamed that he didn't hand in his resignation at the same time?
Mr. Speaker, I understand why the right honourable gentleman continues to politicise issues.
Sorry, Prime Minister. We normally would not, and quite rightly, mention the royal family. We don't get into discussions on the royal family.
Well, in that case, Mr. Speaker, I must ask the right honourable gentleman to withdraw it.
I've dealt with it. Keir Starmer. Keir Starmer, are you going to...
When withdraw it.
Order. Prime Minister, we don't want to go through that again. I'll make the decisions. The answer is that the next question I'm going back to Keir Starmer to ask his final question. Keir Starmer.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Whilst the Prime Minister wastes energy defending the indefensible, people's energy bills are rocketing. Labour has a plan to deal with it. Axe VAT for everyone, provide extra support for the hardest hit, and pay for it with a one-off tax on oil and gas companies. A serious plan for a serious problem. What's the government offering? Nothing. Too distracted by their own chaos to do their job. While Labour was setting out plans to heat homes, he was buying a fridge to keep the party wine chilled. While we were setting out plans to keep bills down, he was planning parties. And while we were setting out plans to save jobs in the steel industry, he was trying to save just one job, his own. Doesn't the country deserve so much better than this out of touch, out of control, out of ideas, and soon to be out of office Prime Minister?
Mr. Speaker, I'll tell you what this government has been doing to look after the people of this country throughout this pandemic and beyond. We have been cutting the cost of living, helping them with the living wage. We've been cutting taxes for people on low pay, Mr. Speaker. We've been increasing payments for people suffering the costs of fuel.
Prime Minister,
look after people.
Can I just say to everyone in here, our constituents wants to hear the questions and the answers. The great British public, the members of this United Kingdom which you're representing, they need to hear. Please, let's hear the questions and answers. Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we will continue to look after people throughout this pandemic and beyond. But we've also, Mr. Speaker, been cutting crime by 10%, putting 11,000 more police officers already out on the street. Record home building last year, Mr. Speaker. More homes than at any time in the last 30 years. We are building 40 new hospitals, Mr. Speaker. Gigabit broadband has gone up from 9% coverage in our country to 65% already. And as I said already, I think 3 times or 4 times today, we have more people, more employees on the payroll now than before the pandemic began. And unemployment, youth unemployment, at a record low, Mr. Speaker. And when the history of this pandemic comes to be written, and the history of the Labour Party comes to be written, and believe me, they are history and will remain history, Mr. Speaker, it will show that we delivered while they dithered, and we vaccinated while they vacillated, Mr. Speaker. And the reason we've been able to lift restrictions faster than any other country in Europe, and we have the most open economy and the most open society in Europe, Mr. Speaker, is thanks to the booster rollout and thanks to the work of staff up and down Whitehall, across government, throughout the NHS, Mr. Speaker, and I am intensely proud of what this government has done.
If you let the questions come, Mark Palsy.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Following on from the excellent news on the economy and jobs, the Prime Minister will remember my question to him last June about proposals for a gigafactory in Coventry. Last week, local councils granted outline planning permission to create 6,000 new skilled jobs, to secure many thousands of others, inject £2.5 billion into our local economy and level up across our region. With fast rising demand for greener and cleaner electric cars, may I ask him for his support to ensure the swift delivery of this vitally important project?
I thank my honourable friend for campaigning for this wonderful project, and we are supporting the electric vehicle industry. We'll be made another £350 million available through the Automotive Transformation Fund, on top of the £500 million commitment that we've already made in the 10-point plan. And I know that the campaign for Coventry Airport is an excellent one. I look forward to seeing how it develops.
We now come to the leader of the SNP, Ian Blackford.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This week was supposed to be Operation Save Big Dog, but it's quickly become Operation Dog's Dinner. Over the past few days, we've had more damaging revelations about Downing Street rule-making, more evidence that Parliament has been misled, and an even longer list of ludicrous, absolutely ludicrous excuses from the Prime Minister. First he claimed there were no parties, then he wasn't present, then he admitted he was at them, but he didn't know it was a party. And then, Mr. Speaker, the latest sorry excuse is really the most pathetic of them all. Nobody told me. Nobody told me. Nobody told the Prime Minister he was breaking his own rules. Absolutely pathetic. The Prime Minister, you know, what a look. The Prime Minister laughing once again, laughing at the British public. The Prime Minister is taking the public for fools. Nobody believes him. Will the Prime Minister finally take responsibility, resign? Go, Prime Minister!
No, Mr. Speaker, but I thank him for his question again, and let me just remind him that there's an inquiry that is due to conclude. I believe he is wrong in what he asserts, Mr. Speaker, but we'll have to wait and see what the inquiry says. But, Mr. Speaker, I think the most important thing from the point of view of the UK government is that we're coming out of the restrictions that we've been in. I'm delighted to see that that's happening in Scotland as well, and that is very largely thanks to the wonderful cooperation that we continue to see across the whole of the UK, though you wouldn't believe it to hear it from him.
Ian Blackford.
Mr. Speaker, I'm afraid nobody is buying this act anymore. There ought to be some respect and dignity from the Prime Minister. Let's remind ourselves, more than 150,000 of our citizens have died, and he's partying, he's laughing. Mr. Speaker, it simply isn't acceptable. The fake contrition, the endless excuses, the empty promises that it will be different only if we give him one last chance. This is a Prime Minister who arrogantly believes that he's above the rules. A Prime Minister who brazenly twists the truth. A Prime Minister who simply isn't fit for office. The Prime Minister's former Chief Advisor has said that he lied to Parliament, breaking the ministerial code. Prime Minister, a resignation offence. Public trust is hemorrhaging. With every day that passes, this Tory government loses even more credibility. When will the Tory MPs finally do the right thing? Show the Prime Minister the door.
Mr. Speaker, I thank the right honourable gentleman, but I must say that I disagree with him, and I think that when you look at the levels of trust that the British people in Scotland, Wales, Northern Ireland, across the whole country have shown in government, that there is the single biggest index, Mr. Speaker, of that trust has been their willingness to come forward voluntarily, Mr. Speaker, unlike many other countries in the world, to get vaccinated on a scale not seen anywhere else in Europe. And that is because of our ability and the NHS's ability to persuade people that it's the right thing. It's a fantastic thing. And by the way, Mr. Speaker, it's also a tribute to the United Kingdom, because that vaccine rollout was a UK effort.
Paul Benson. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. When it comes to exporting, as you're well aware, file punches well above its weight. And the Prime Minister saw this when he visited BAE Systems' Factory of the Future in Lancashire last year. In addition, fantastic local businesses such as Helical Technologies, Tangerine Holdings and Nature's Aid are doing a great job for flying the flag for Lancashire globally. But I've also got many smaller businesses who are eager to get exporting into new markets. What steps is the Prime Minister taking to help foil businesses, make the most of Brexit and maximise export potential?
Well, I thank him for championing. I thank him for what he's doing to champion trade with Latin America. And I've no doubt that businesses, small businesses such as Squire Hare, are eager to get into those new markets, and we will do everything that we can to help and support him in his efforts.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As the cost of living crisis deepens, this government's priorities get ever more remote from my Kirkcaldy and Cowdenbeath constituency. Only this week, I learned a veteran in my constituency, James Scott, took his own life as a result of his struggle with mounting financial pressures. This is a government who are found to have acted unlawfully by the High Court over COVID contracts and now preparing to write off £4.3 billion allocated to those COVID schemes. Why can the UK government find billions of pounds for profiteers and fraudsters, but they can't find compassion to treat the people with dignity, lifting the benefits cap and reinstating the cut to universal credit?
Well, first of all, Mr. Speaker, I want to say how sorry I am for what he's had to say about James Scott, and this government does as much as we can to support veterans, and that's why we published the Veterans Action Plan only the other day, Mr. Speaker. But what we're also doing is ensuring that we support people throughout this crisis. He mentions, and I've said in my answer to the right honourable gentleman, many of the steps that we're taking to protect people on low incomes, and we will continue to do more, Mr. Speaker. He attacks the contracts for PPE. Actually, I think it was an astonishing thing at great speed to be able to give this country 17 billion items of PPE, thanks to the efforts of people across Whitehall. Mr. Speaker, this country is now capable of producing 80% of our own PPE.
Kate Griffiths.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Shortly before Christmas, my constituent, Oliver Freckleton, was found at home having been stabbed to death on the eve of his 20th birthday. Yesterday, his heartbroken parents held their son's funeral. Oliver leaves behind a partner and a baby daughter, and 2 teenagers have been arrested for his murder. Now, this tragic event leaves behind a devastated family, friends, and a very worried community. I'm grateful for the work that Staffordshire Police is undertaking to tackle violent crime in my constituency, and the extra 149 additional police officers recruited is very welcome. But does the Prime Minister agree with me that a multi-stakeholder approach is vital to tackling crimes amongst our young people? And what can the government do to support not just the police, but schools, colleges and local authorities in working to address this issue?
My honourable friend, first of all, I'm very sad to hear the news of the loss of her constituent, Oliver. And like so many victims of violent crime, the answer, as is the case with so many victims, the answer is not just policing, though that is vitally important, and that's why we're investing so massively in 20,000 more police officers and supporting them with toughening the law, Mr. Speaker. But it's also, as she rightly says, important to get all the institutions of the state to work together: schools, colleges, the social services, and the health service, mental health service as well.
Jessica Morton.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Why is it so hard for this Prime Minister to admit that he made the rules, so he should know the rules and he should follow the rules? Everyone out there knows it's as simple as that. And if he had any shred of compassion for all those out there who've suffered through this, he'd go.
Mr. Speaker, I entirely understand people's feelings, and I entirely support what she says about obeying the rules when you make the rules. She's completely right. On the other hand, I do urge her to wait, as I've said to the benches of it, to wait until next week.
Paul.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The opposition have been told there's going to be an inquiry. They've visited every single question on one issue. Well, my constituents wants to get on with other things. In January 2021, the government estimated that at least 800 million will be released from the Dormant Assets Scheme extension. Does you agree with me that funding through a new community wealth fund will be a catalyst to level up the most left-behind communities, and the bill should include specific provision for a consultation on the scope, shape and nature of such a fund?
Mr. Speaker, we certainly are legislating to, I thank him very much, and we will be legislating to expand the dormant assets scheme to include new financial assets, which would unlock an estimated £880 million. We'll be considering how to spend the English portion of that, and the Community Wealth Fund that he proposes is certainly an option, and I thank him very much.
Peter Grant.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My constituent Anne has told me a friend saw the ambulance outside the house on the night Anne's husband died. She wasn't allowed to go into the house to comfort her friend. Anne's husband went to his rest in an almost empty building, while scores of his friends stood freezing outside. Anne went home to an empty house to grieve the rest of the day alone. My constituent Susan wasn't allowed to go in the ambulance or even follow the ambulance, blue light and all, after her husband had a heart attack. Other constituents had the heartbreaking realisation they weren't allowed to go into care homes to break the news in person to their relatives that someone else in the family had died. Mr. Speaker, in their words, not mine, in their words, the Prime Minister is a charlatan, a hypocrite and a liar. What will he now say to our constituents?
Look, I know you're repeating what your constituents said. I want more moderate and temperate language. Prime Minister, you might just want to deal with the general question, certainly not the answer.
I thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I want to repeat that I understand the feelings that he has relayed to me, as I said last week, and I sympathise very deeply with the feelings, and I understand why people feel as they do. And I thank people very much for everything they have done. I recognise the enormous sacrifice that people have made. I apologise for misjudgments that may have been made in number 10 by me and anybody else, but please can I ask him to wait for the inquiry to conclude.
Andrew Lower.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I recently attended a debate held by my honourable friend for West Aberdeenshire and Kincardine seeking a central London memorial for the Photographic Reconnaissance Unit. And in it I referenced my Northampton South constituent, mosquito pilot, Mr. George Pritchard, who is 98 next week and is one of the last surviving members of the unit. Will the Prime Minister join my honourable friend, me and Mr. Pritchard in backing this fitting and needed memorial?
I thank him very much, and I will certainly do what I can to support it, though, of course, as he knows, the memorial to George Pritchard, though, as he knows, this is a matter for local authorities. What this House and what this government can certainly do is ensure that memorials are not desecrated, as they have been across this country, and make sure that we support legislation that penalises those who indulge in such desecration, Mrs.
Dame Diana Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, when a Prime Minister is spending his time trying to convince the great British public that he's actually stupid rather than dishonest, isn't it time that he goes now?
Mr. Speaker, I think that was a question for you rather than me, but I'm not. Look, I've made my point. I think that the British public have responded to what this government has had to say in the most eloquent way possible. They have beaten COVID so far, Mr. Speaker. They have helped to defeat COVID so far, Mr. Speaker, with the steps they have taken by getting vaccinated and implementing Plan B, and I thank them.
Just for the Prime Minister, for the record, it's not Speaker's questions. Sir Robert Goodall.
Our armed forces have earned the respect and admiration of our nation, not least during the pandemic. On Remembrance Sunday, we commemorate their sacrifices, but on Armed Forces Day, on the 25th of June, we will celebrate all that is amazing about our Army, Navy and Air Force. In a normal year, we get about 20,000 people at the event in Scarborough, but this year we will finally host, after twice being postponed, National Armed Forces Day. Will the Prime Minister pull out all the stops on land, sea and air to make this truly an event to remember?
Well, Mr. Speaker, I have no doubt that Armed Forces Day will be absolutely spectacular across the country, and that Scarborough will make a terrific contribution and a notable contribution as well.
Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Last April, I asked the Prime Minister if he agreed with the principle that politicians shouldn't lie. He replied that he concurred with the basic principle that the Honourable Gentleman has just enunciated. Would he like to amend the record?
No, Mr. Speaker.
Simon Hall.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The vast majority of people, and indeed politicians across Northern Ireland, believe that whatever the question, double jobbing is not the answer. Could I urge my right honourable friend to listen to the majority and ask him not to move the government amendment in the other place later today?
I'm grateful to my honourable friend, and I'm advised that I think the amendment in question is indeed going to be withdrawn.
Twist.
Mr. Speaker, my constituents are rightly angry at the Prime Minister's behaviour. But while Downing Street fights to save his political life, people across the North East are worrying about rising food and energy bills, rising unemployment and rising levels of child poverty. He talks about levelling up, but my constituents are seeing opportunities cut. Does the Prime Minister agree with me that his government has failed and it's time for him to go?
No, Mr. Speaker, I really don't agree with her, and I don't think she could have been following anything that's being said this afternoon. We have unemployment falling to near record lows, Mr. Speaker, and we have job vacancies. We have job vacancies at record highs, Mr. Speaker. That's what Conservative governments do. They create jobs and they get the economy moving.
David Davis.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Like many on these benches, I spent weeks and months defending the Prime Minister against often angry constituents. I've reminded them of his success in delivering Brexit and on the vaccine and many other things. But I expect my leaders to shoulder the responsibility for the actions they take. Yesterday, he did the opposite of that. So I'll remind him of a quotation altogether too familiar to him of Leo Amery to Neville Chamberlain. You have sat there too long for all the good you have done. In the name of God, go.
Order. Prime Minister.
I must say to the right honourable gentleman, I don't know what he's talking about, but what I can tell him, I don't know what quotation he's alluding to that he's referring. But what I can tell him is that I think I've told this House repeatedly throughout this pandemic, I take full responsibility for everything done in this government and throughout the pandemic.
Stephen Kinnock.
Does the Prime Minister agree with the Leader of the House that the Leader of the Scottish Conservatives is a lightweight?
Mr. Speaker, the Conservative approach to the Union is one that I think is right for our country. We want to keep it together, and I think Conservatives in Scotland do an excellent job, and that's why their stout defiance, their stout defence of the Union was repaid at the last election, and Labour, Mr. Speaker, is increasingly endangering our unions.
Clayton Drummond.
Mr. Speaker, and many people last week welcomed the 5-year moratorium on smart motorways. However, the M27 is due to be open as a smart motorway in a couple of months. What reassurance can my right honourable friend give my constituents in Meon Valley and others in the rest of South Hampshire that the M27 will be safe and give them confidence to use it?
I thank her very much, and I can assure her that we're well aware of the risks associated with the smart motorway scheme. I know that my right honourable friend, the Secretary of State for Transport, is looking at it right now.
We now come to the Prime Minister's COVID-19 statement. I now call the Prime Minister.
Thank you. Mr. Speaker, with permission, I will make a statement on our progress against Omicron.
Prime Minister, just let the room clear a little bit. Order. Can we please leave quickly and quietly? What a day. Prime Minister, please.
Mr. Speaker, with permission, I will make a statement on our progress against Omicron and the review of our Plan B measures. Within hours of learning from scientists in South Africa about the emergence of a new COVID variant last November, this government acted, introducing balanced and proportionate restrictions at our borders to slow the seeding of Omicron in our country. As we learned more about this highly transmissible new variant, we implemented the Plan B measures we had prepared precisely in case our situation deteriorated, encouraging people to change their behaviour to slow the spread of the virus and buying crucial time to get boosters into arms. We made the big call to refocus our National Health Service, necessarily requiring the difficult postponement of many other appointments so that we could double the speed of the booster programme. And thanks to the extraordinary efforts of our NHS and its volunteers, we delivered the fastest booster programme in Europe, reaching half our population before any other European country, with more than 36 million boosters now in arms across the UK, including more than 90% of all over 60s in England. And taking a balanced approach, we resisted calls from others to shut down our country all over again. Many nations across Europe have endured further winter lockdowns. Many have seen hospitality curfews and nightclubs closed, capacity limits at sports stadiums, the return of social distancing, and in some places, Christmas and New Year as good as cancelled. But this government took a different path. We kept England open, and we supported those businesses which faced reduced demand because of the response to Plan B measures. And while we must continue to remain cautious, the data are showing that time and again this government got the toughest decisions right. Today's latest ONS data show clearly that infection levels are falling in England, and while there are some places where cases are likely to continue rising, including in primary schools, our scientists believe it is likely that the Omicron wave has now peaked nationally. There remain, of course, significant pressures on the NHS across our country, and especially in the North East and North West. But hospital admissions, which were doubling every 9 days just 2 weeks ago, have now stabilised, with admissions in London even falling, and the numbers in intensive care not only remain low but are actually also falling. So this morning, the Cabinet concluded that because of the extraordinary booster campaign, together with the way the public have responded to the Plan B measures, we can return to Plan A in England and allow Plan B regulations to expire. As a result, from the start of Thursday next week, mandatory certification will end. Organisations can, of course, choose to use the NHS COVID Pass voluntarily, but we will end the compulsory use of COVID status certification in England. From now on, the government is no longer asking people to work from home. And people should now speak to their employers about arrangements for returning to the office. And having looked at the data carefully, the Cabinet concluded that once regulations lapse, the government will no longer mandate the wearing of face masks anywhere. Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, from tomorrow we will no longer require face masks in classrooms, and the Department for Education will shortly remove national guidance on their use in communal areas. In the country at large, we will continue to suggest the use of face coverings in enclosed or crowded spaces, particularly when you come into contact with people you don't normally meet, but we will trust the judgment of the British people and no longer criminalise anyone who chooses not to wear one. The government will also ease restrictions further on visits to care homes, and my right honourable friend, the Secretary of State for Health and Social Care, will set out plans in the coming days. Mr. Speaker, as we return to Plan A, the House will know that some measures still remain, including those on self-isolation. In particular, it is still a legal requirement for those who have tested positive for COVID to self-isolate. On Monday, we reduced the isolation period to 5 full days with 2 negative tests, and there will soon come a time when we can remove the legal requirement to self-isolate altogether, just as we don't place legal obligations on people to isolate if they have flu. As COVID becomes endemic, we will need to replace legal requirements with advice and guidance, urging people with the virus to be careful and considerate of others. The self-isolation regulations expire on the 24th of March, at which point I very much expect not to renew them. Indeed, were the data to allow, I would like to seek a vote in this House to bring that date forwards. In advance of that, we will set out our long-term strategy for living with COVID-19, explaining how we hope and intend to protect our liberty and avoid restrictions in future by relying instead on medical advances, especially the vaccines which have already saved so many lives. But to make that possible, we must all remain cautious during these last weeks of winter. When there are still over 16,000 people in hospital in England alone, the pandemic is not over. And Mr. Speaker, make no mistake, Omicron is not a mild disease for everyone, especially if you're not vaccinated. Just look at the numbers in intensive care in other countries where vaccination rates are far lower. Indeed, from our NHS data, we know that around 90% of people in intensive care are not boosted. So I urge members across the House to do everything possible to encourage any remaining constituents who have not done so to get boosted now. And for the next few weeks, I encourage everyone across the country to continue with the behaviours that we know help to keep everybody safe. Washing hands, letting fresh air in, getting tested, self-isolating if positive, and, as I say, thinking about wearing a face covering in crowded and enclosed settings. Mr. Speaker, Omicron tested us just as Alpha and Delta did before. But let's remember some of what we've achieved. We were the first nation in the world to administer a vaccine. We were the fastest in Europe to roll it out, because outside the European Medicines Agency, this government made the big call to pursue our own British procurement strategy rather than opting back into the EU scheme as some people urged. We created a world-beating testing programme, the largest in Europe, Mr. Speaker, and procured the most antivirals of any country in Europe too, because this government made the big call to invest early in lateral flow tests and in cutting-edge drugs to protect the most vulnerable. We've delivered the fastest booster campaign in Europe, and we are the first to emerge from the Omicron wave, because the government made the big call to focus on our NHS and to refocus our activity and lead that campaign to get boosted now. And that's why we've retained the most open economy and society anywhere across the European continent and the fastest growing economy in the G7. Because we made that tough decision to open up last summer when others said that we shouldn't. And to keep things open over the winter when others wanted them shut, Mr. Speaker. This week, the World Health Organization said that while the global situation remains challenging, the United Kingdom can start to see the light at the end of the tunnel. And, Mr. Speaker, this is no accident of history. Exactly. Confronted by the nation's biggest challenge since the Second World War and the worst pandemic since 1918, any government would get some things wrong, but this government got the big things right, Mr. Speaker, and I commend this statement to the House.
Starr.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I thank the Prime Minister for advance sight of his statement. Throughout the pandemic, the British public have made enormous sacrifices to limit the spread of the virus, staying at home, social distancing, and, unlike the Prime Minister, cancelling parties. I would like to thank everybody who has followed the rules. I'd like to thank the NHS staff and volunteers who've rolled out the booster jab. The Labour Party does not want to see restrictions in place any longer than necessary. We will support the relaxation of Plan B as long as the science says that it is safe. So can the Prime Minister share the scientific evidence behind his decision and reassure the public that he's acting to protect their health, not just his job? The 438 deaths recorded yesterday are a solemn reminder that this pandemic is not over. We need to remain vigilant, learn the lessons from the government's mistakes. With new variants highly likely, we must have a robust plan to live well with COVID. So where is it? He's too distracted to do the job. And it's not just the Prime Minister who's letting us down. Where's the Health Secretary's plan to prepare for another wave of infections? Why isn't the Chancellor working with British manufacturers to shore up our domestic supplies of tests? Where is the Foreign Secretary's plan to help vaccinate the world? They're all too busy plotting their leadership campaigns to keep the public safe. While the Conservative Party tear themselves apart, jostling for position, looking inward, the Labour Party is focused on the national interest, filling their void. We have a plan that the Prime Minister doesn't. We would train and retain a reserve army of volunteer vaccinators. We will build a supply of test kits made in Britain to protect us from global shortages. We would raise statutory sick pay and make all workers eligible. Keep schools open by improving ventilation. Break the endless cycle of new variants by playing our part in vaccinating the world. We would produce a roadmap for decision-making to ensure efficient action when it's demanded. We'd stop the short-sighted sell-off of the UK's vaccine manufacturing centre, and we would never again allow our NHS and social care service to be so run down and underfunded, understaffed and overstretched as it has been over the last decade of a Tory government. Mr. Speaker, Labour has a plan to live well with COVID and secure our lives, livelihoods and liberties. Where's his?
Well, Mr. Speaker, I'd be happy to share the scientific advice on which we've taken this decision, of course, and he can see it's there for everybody to consult. But he asks about our testing abilities, Mr. Speaker. We're conducting about 1.25 million tests a day. We have the biggest capability to do tests of any country in Europe. We've built, as I promised the House, Mr. Speaker, and he attacked me at the time, I said, well, we have a world-beating testing industry, a massive diagnostics facility, which we never had before. He attacks the government over the distribution of vaccines to the rest of the world. We've already done 30 million. We'll do 100 million by June, Mr. Speaker, and 2.5 billion AstraZeneca vaccines have been distributed around the world, thanks to the deal the UK government did with AstraZeneca, so that those vaccines are distributed at cost price. He talks about funding the NHS. That party, Mr. Speaker, voted against the funding that we're going to need to clear the COVID backlogs and fund our NHS. Mr. Speaker, throughout this pandemic, he has been absolutely shameless in veering from one position to the next, and he has been wrong. He has been wrong about virtually every single important decision. He was wrong about keeping schools open, Mr. Speaker. Do you remember he consistently refused to say that they were safe because of what his paymasters in the union were telling him? He was wrong about going forward from lockdown in July, on July the 19th. He said it was reckless. Do you remember, Mr. Speaker? He was totally wrong. He was wrong about, the Labour front bench were wrong about going through Christmas and New Year with Plan B, as we did. They said we needed a roadmap back to lockdown. He did. That guy did. Oh no, wait, it was Ashwin. Maybe it was you. That guy. They said they wanted a roadmap back to lockdown, Mr. Speaker. At every step, and above all, Mr. Speaker, they tried to undermine the vaccine task force and to say that you could not spend money. They said you should not be spending £675,000 of taxpayers' money on outreach to vaccine-hesitant groups. That's their idea of priority spending, Mr. Speaker. He has been, it's been absolutely miserable listening to the opposite bench because they have had nothing useful to say. They have flip-flopped opportunistically from one position to the other. And, Mr. Speaker, did you get any idea from what he said just now whether or not he supports what we're doing? No. So he does support it. Okay, he supports it this week, Mr. Speaker. But what you can be certain of, Mr. Speaker, is that if he thinks that there's any political opportunity in opposing it next week, he won't hesitate to do so. He's been Captain Hindsight throughout, Mr. Speaker. Captain Hindsight, and he's had absolutely nothing useful to say or to contribute.
Lisa May, Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I refer the House to my entry in the Members' Register. Can I say to my right honourable friend that many of my constituents work in the aviation sector? I welcome the announcement he's made about Plan B restrictions today, but I note he made no reference to the tests that are still required for people coming into England. If we're going to learn to live with COVID, we need to facilitate travel. So will he take this opportunity to announce that when Plan B restrictions are removed next week, the government also make it clear that there will be no test requirements for anybody entering England who is fully vaccinated?
I thank my right honourable friend. We're certainly reviewing the testing arrangements for travel, and my right honourable friend, the Secretary of State for Health, will be making a statement in the next few days on that, Mr. Speaker. But I think it's very important that everybody in the country understands that getting your booster, wherever you want to go in the world, getting your booster is going to be a pretty crucial thing to do.
We now come to Ian Blackford.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I thank the Prime Minister for advance sight of his statement. We're all grateful that the data suggests that we've turned a corner in the Omicron wave, and that the success of the vaccination programme in particular gives us cause to be hopeful in the months ahead. But though declining, the level of infection is still undoubtedly high, and the NHS remains under pressure. That is why caution is the key, rather than the PM strategy of throwing caution to the wind. Baseline measures of face coverings and indoor public places and working from home where possible, which Scotland still has in place throughout, are extremely important in the weeks ahead, as is the guidance on lateral flow test. So, will the Prime Minister guarantee, and maybe if he can come off his phone because this is important, so will the Prime Minister guarantee that lateral flow tests will remain free as they are required, and put to bed speculation that they will be removed free at the point of need? But, Mr. Speaker, while the data gives us cause to be optimistic, the real problem for the Prime Minister is that no matter what the data has said today, he had no choice but to throw caution to the wind. The pathetic and unbelievable excuses that he doesn't know his own rules have left the Prime Minister weak. The Prime Minister is unable to lead on this issue or on any other, and the public can't trust a single word that the Prime Minister says. Any shred of credibility has gone. In a global pandemic, which is what the World Health Organization is cautioning, is nowhere near over, and during which new variants are likely to emerge, it is deeply concerning that we have a Prime Minister like this at the helm who simply is not fit to lead. And even though, thankfully, the figures give us cause to be hopeful, it's clear that the Prime Minister cannot carry on when his credibility has all gone.
Prime Minister.
Well, Mr. Speaker, I repeat the points I made earlier.